Wrestling fans, spring kicks off with the in-studio return of the Berzerker, John Nord, Thursday, April the 14th, to kick off Back to the 80s live wrestling in Legends Fanfest weekend. The Berzerker returns for Wrestling Insider Throwback Thursday tapings, live episodes, a cyber autograph signing, and more. Check out Boston Wrestling's exclusive print that the Berzerker will sign to you live on the air. The big man kicks off 3 big days of action, excitement, and memories. Head on over to bostonwrestling.com for complete information. Wrestling fans, VIP packages and tickets are on sale now for Boston Wrestling MWF's Back to the 80s live event in Legends FanFest, Saturday, April the 16th at Memorial Hall in Melrose, Massachusetts. See and meet WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, 3-time WWE Tag Team Champions Axe and Smash Demolition, WWE Hall of Famers Tito, Santana, and Cowboy Bob Orton, the Wild Berzerker, the indestructible Warlord, Dangerous Danny Davis, and if you great fans step up and get those VIP packages and tickets now, we'll add more 80s WWF legends. VIPs take part in exclusive Q&A sessions and an 80s Legends group photo before doors open to all fans for an autograph photo fan fest and a night of hot in-ring action for memories that'll last a lifetime while helping our friends from Make-A-Wish. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's the wrestling celebration, decades in the making. Lock in the best seats in the party now at bostonwrestling.com. We'll see you live April 16th.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, welcome to a special Wrestling Insiders Extreme Marathon featuring in on the episodes we taped with former ECW World Champion Justin Credible over the summer, looking at his unique career, breaking into wrestling in early days, and people in the world of Extreme ECW. We had a great experience with Justin at the studio on this day, as well as at our 20th anniversary live event at Memorial Hall in Melrose back on November the 13th. Justin was booked to come back here to the studio a couple of Sundays later in early December, and that morning needed money to get the car to get up here, then ran into a major traffic jam that wouldn't end. Easy traffic fix, right? Justin's only in Connecticut, no airfare, nothing to worry about. Could simply have him come back the next Sunday, which we agreed to. So the following Sunday, get the message from Justin, car accident, car issues, he needs even more money, a moderate amount of money, but more money via PayPal. And then we planned to set it up again for the next Sunday, which wasted the studio staff's time and certainly messed up the rotation of our regular weekly series. From there, Justin decided to block our text messages. Justin decided to ignore our Facebook messages. Justin responded to one Twitter message of the many sent to him saying he was, quote-unquote, looking for us. Enough of the bullshit. We have fans reaching out to us about his books and masks he was supposed to send to them. I want to stress, myself, Boston Wrestling has nothing to do with this book and mask project, but certainly feel for the fans that were burned as a result of it because, hey, we've been burned too. So where Justin won't respond to us, where Justin won't respond to our questions, and where Justin simply chose to take our money twice right before Christmas, when we have done nothing but go out of our way to extend the olive branch of friendship to keep the door open for a positive platform for him to make easy extra income on the Wrestling Insiders Extreme program, as well as promote his merchandise, his book, his live appearance endeavors. We've decided to let you, the fan, call and ask the former ECW World Champion these questions since he won't respond to us. We wish he'd respond to us, but he won't. We've been shown nothing but disrespect by a man we were genuine and honest to for 3 months at this point, and I've frankly had enough of these asshole pro wrestlers thinking because they were on TV 20 years ago, they have the right to screw over hardworking people that have tried to do right by them, that don't have any moral code as a human being. We sincerely hope you enjoy these episodes with Justin Credible. We'd love Justin to wake up tomorrow or any day soon, look in the mirror and choose to be a man of character and integrity and produce the content that Justin agreed to produce. But again, with him blowing us off for 3 months, taking money, ignoring text, blocking texts, ignoring Facebook messages, ignoring all but one tweet, doesn't look good on his end. I've unfortunately had to reach out to other interesting ECW alumni to appear on the show in the studio, but our first choice would have been Justin, and that's pretty sad. It's a big week for us as we're pushing VIP packages and live event tickets to our Back to the 80s live wrestling event and Legends Fanfest Saturday night, April the 16th at Memorial Hall, right here in Melrose. If we have a great week of sales, myself and John Cena Sr. will be announcing more than the 8 advertised, promised 1980s WWF Legends at the event this Monday night before Raw. It is truly going to be a professional wrestling celebration. Decades in the making. VIPs, they get the early access question and answer session with the Legends. The VIPs get the exclusive 80s group photo with all of the Legends. Then when the doors open to all fans, it's time for that autograph photo fan fest, along with a hot night of in-ring professional wrestling. Head on over to bostonwrestling.com, lock in the best seats in the house, then Monday night before Raw, hopefully we're going to have some good news for you. Maybe a 9th, a 10th, an 11th, a 12th. How many 80s Legends can we pack into Memorial Hall on April 16th? It's up to you. You can get your tickets as late as bell time on April 16th, but if you order them by this Sunday, March the 13th, it increases the chances of us adding more WWF Legends to the event. But as they say, at least in the talk show world, the show must go on, and the show goes on tonight. If you want to give Justin a ring, here is your chance to talk to the ECW World Champion personally. We ask you to like, share, and subscribe all that we do to try and provide you great wrestling history, entertainment, and talk 7 nights a week. 7 nights a week. And I'm on day right now, my God, I'm on day 12 of a major CRPS battle in my right hip, my right knee, and both of my feet. I can barely walk. All I could do is complain, but I'm not. You want to know why? Because if I was just incredible, I would have honored my commitment. But that is a different story for a different time. At the end of the day, we can all simply wake up, choose to do the right thing as a human being and as a professional, and none of this nonsense happens. But nonetheless, it's time to get extreme with Just Incredible. Enjoy. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marati, joined by the former ECW World Heavyweight Champion, Just Incredible. If for some reason he doesn't like to put that over, I don't get it. But that's your thing, brother.
It is
you
what
put
it
it
is.
over.
I try.
You gotta put it over.
I try once in a while.
I tell you, what a series this has become. ECW, no matter how quote-unquote old the content and the footage get, how long ago it's been since those extreme events took place at the arena, in Queens, on pay-per-view, the love for that promotion will never die. And we're going to dive into it very deep as this series continues, but maybe just a few sentences. Why is there so much love for this promotion that hasn't truly existed outside of the WWE form now in just a little bit over 20 years?
Well, I mean, it just shows, the kind of promotion it was, the kind of groundbreaking stuff ECW was doing. I mean, very rarely do we talk or celebrate WCW, and we're still to this day, 20 plus years later, talking about ECW because not only did the characters change the way the business was, the way Paul Heyman and the way we told stories changed the business. And, to this day, our effect is still being seen all over the wrestling world.
WWE never brought back a retro ECW on the Sci-Fi Channel for 5 years. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes without saying many of the fans were interested in your thoughts before, again, we talk more about you and your ECW experiences, about the man that kicked off the series for the first 6 weeks. The late Jerome Young, New Jack, just shocking. We had him here in May. The episodes are excellent, as I'm sure you've seen. We had so much fun, so many laughs for all the people that were kind of, you have a New Jack at the studio? And I don't think we could have had more fun. And we had a great dinner up at the Kowloon Entertainment and Dining Complex on Route 1 in Saugus that all the boys love so much. And I will never forget 6 nights later being at Fenway Park for a Red Sox game for the first time in a year and a half. The Corona rules were still in effect. I think you could only have 5,000 people in the park. And I thought my phone broke because it wouldn't stop buzzing. That's how many messages I was getting when the news broke that he had passed away. So the fans had asked, in your experience with him, I believe he was there during your entire tenure, your memories, your thoughts on the late New Jack?
I mean, he was definitely, what made him so special is he was himself. It was unadulterated the way New Jack was on camera and off, which, not very many places would ever consider having somebody like that. Too risky, too controversial. But, what people don't know when the cameras are off is he's got a real sweet and gentle side that he showed, to friends and family, and I got the pleasure of seeing that. But it truly was an amazing, complex human being, and I was just blessed to share the ring with him, blessed to share a locker room with him, and the fans as well, blessed to kind of witness what we call, the gangster New Jack.
I think it's great that they produced that Dark Side of the Ring episode on him. I think they did a fair job, if nothing else. The one thing I wish they had included, and I have tried to mention it in different interviews we've done, is just the tremendous, and it's so sad that he's gone, but the tremendous end of life that he did have, where I'm not sure what happened, whether it was an in-ring injury or just an illness, but he was hospitalized in Atlantic City for quite a bit.
Yeah.
He said, he had a lot of friends in that area,
Sure.
Atlantic City, Philadelphia, and so on. And he said he felt like no one really cared.
Yeah.
And he heard from a fan down in North Carolina, and they would interact. I think it was Facebook. They were going back and forth on, back and forth on. And after a couple of weeks, she actually drove up from North Carolina to Atlantic City to see him, and he wound up marrying her, the lovely Jennifer. And she had 3 young kids of her own. And I remember asking him in Kowloon, I said, what was it like for you, if they ever, Googled you or looked you up on YouTube, to move into their home and become stepdad? And he said, you want to know the truth? They look at me like I'm a big toy. And that's the side of him I think you were just trying to describe a minute ago. Beyond the ultra-violence in extreme presentation, no pun intended, that he had in ECW, and then on the independents after the fact, there was such a golden side to him.
Yeah.
And that's funny because one of the first times I ever met him when ECW started to come up here was the Coolest incident, which I'm sure you've probably seen.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
That yelp that came from him.
Well, I mean, that in those days, man, I'll tell you, things were a bit different, and we took what we did very seriously in the ring. And, I in no means am I saying that the young man had it coming, but you sort of, when you get into the ring, you're crossing a line, and it's only meant for professionals. I wasn't there that night, thank God. But word on the street was he was not trained and he didn't belong in the ring. And I think New Jack took offense. And of course, Paul Heyman definitely egged on the situation to make it what it was, which was a huge fallout. But it got people talking. And as Eric Bischoff has said, controversy, whether good or bad, creates cash. And it helped build that fear of New Jack. That
in the promotion itself to people that weren't familiar with it.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I have never, in 28 years now, have ever seen anything like what he did to that poor soul that night. Rest in peace. Sorry, he's gone. But you know what? You want to show up at an event, you want to say you were a Kowalski guy and so on and so forth. You want to run your mouth and put yourself in a big position like that. Not to say that it didn't go a little too far.
Absolutely.
But you know what? That's what happens when you want to play with the big boys, with the true pros. And, unfortunately, he was banned from Wonderland Greyhound Park for a full year. Funny enough, that's where we had our first live event back in 2001 after ECW had closed down. But no, just a shame. Again, you said, it almost took the thoughts out of my mind. Just such a dangerous persona that, wow, and that's missing in pro wrestling in general right now. I would not want to fuck with this human being.
Right.
And again, if you got to know him well enough or got on his good side, you get to see the fun and the humor and the genuine belly laughs that you could have with him.
Absolutely.
But you wouldn't want to cross him.
No.
He had no problems adjusting an attitude if it needed to be adjusting. Yeah. And I'm just, my great, other than being so sorry that he passed, I still message with Jennifer on social media from time to time because you know what? The guy shouldn't be forgotten after a week or two. No. That's one of my big problems with what was, and you're around long enough to remember when this was a brotherhood. Right. When we were taught, you know what, everybody wants the best spot. Everybody wants to make the most money. But other than that, It's a fraternity. It's a brotherhood. We should be here to look after each other and try and help each other out.
Yeah.
That's why I think this studio is such a great thing. It gives guys an easy opportunity to make extra income to live their lives just by flying in or driving in, telling their stories and going home. It's simple, and we've been doing it now. The first one we did, I don't know if you're familiar with it, was with the Iron Sheik, where he showed up with no teeth after a wild cocaine binge, talking about wanting to rape Brian Blair and Hulk Hogan.
That must have been a hell of an episode.
It was on the Howard Stern show.
Oh, that's what got him started with Howard.
Yes. In the infancy of YouTube, before the term viral became a term, someone from Howard found it on the clip on YouTube about the Sheik wanting to rape all of these former co-workers, and they were playing it every day. And the cool thing was, at one point they were going to bring him in, and they wanted to use the actual footage, but for that they needed, copyrights and so on and so forth. So we worked out a deal where they gave us advertising for our live events, so they could use the footage of the audio they were already using. So it worked out for everybody.
Yeah, everybody wins, sure.
They had the fun they had with him for however long until it got stale.
Yeah.
And it helped us in promoting our live events to such
And it helped Sheik, really.
And the Sheik.
Yeah.
The live bookings, the bookings we were able to get for him out of that.
I can imagine.
God. The Sheik, when Matt Cain fell over, that was as a result of him. I don't want to get into, I'll tell you that story sometime, it'll come up. But honestly, no, because of his drug-induced nonsense and a long, long delay of leaving a venue, we got hit by a drunk driver that almost killed us.
Really?
Yeah. So I went from being a 24-year-old kid to a crippled guy.
Goodness.
The Sheik's foot. I don't know if you've ever seen Sheik try and walk over the past 15 years, but it's almost like the foot has shifted and he's walking on the bottom of his ankle.
Oh, wow.
And the sad thing is, again, a lot of the fans have heard this story, but he signed on with an ambulance chaser really quick. And the kid that hit us, he was a year younger than me, so he didn't have anything. He had the max insurance of what he had for a policy, which wasn't much.
Right.
So once this ambulance chaser attorney realized that, he just basically said, screw it. It had nothing to do with the Sheik. Sheiky Baby never got a penny from the car accident.
Really?
Not to say that I got anywhere near what I deserve for a life-altering injury.
Of course, yeah.
It was something to live off of for the better part of a year as opposed to nothing.
Yeah, but still, wow.
But anyway.
I never knew that one.
I don't even know how the hell the Sheik came up. Sheik always, different interviews we've had here in the studio. Well, to me, that's what it's about. I wish we could get to the point where there's so much fan support, we could do this, have guys in here 7 days a week to come and tell their stories.
That'd be a great thing.
WWE Network, WWE is not going to make a 3-disc DVD of every star they ever had. But that doesn't mean their stories, their experiences, their sacrifices shouldn't be documented, and they shouldn't be available for fans to learn from and enjoy.
And I think that's a huge mistake in something that has been so big in the shoot interview world and other with YouTube and Feinstein, RF Video, and all those guys, is that other part of the scene that isn't necessarily in the WWE or not on the WWE network that people would like to know about. And because there's so many generations of guys and gals out there with long careers that you would think have disappeared off the face of the earth, when in reality they've been on the scene hustling. And so it's a great idea, and I'm glad that somebody's recognizing it.
Well, we can only do what we can do.
That's it.
I always wonder sometimes if this place is haunted when I think of so many guys that have been here that have passed away. And I think when you talk to someone like that and you bare your soul, I think a little part of that stays where you are. I don't know how much of a spiritual person you may be, but anyway, tell us about a young PJ Polacco. Are you a Connecticut guy?
Yeah, born and raised in Connecticut.
Tell me what got you interested. I don't know how old you were when you started watching, but tell us about your introduction to just seeing professional wrestling.
Man, I had to be maybe 12 years old.
A little older, okay.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of kids that get into it, I just tuned into, I think it was like Saturday Morning Superstars, and I remember Hulk Hogan was pinning the Iron Sheik to win the WWF title for the first time. And from then, from there it just started to slowly develop into, just seeing all these cool people and what was going on. And I didn't know if it was real or fake, because not everybody was into wrestling yet at that time. This was right before going into like WrestleMania 1. And just from there, really, wanting to stay up for Saturday night's main event and, all the other cool stuff that was happening is when I really kind of got into it as a kid.
I don't think the fans of today, they can read all the books, they can watch all the interviews they want to watch. I don't think they can realize how hot and how mainstream it was from 85 through 89-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, it was everywhere. It was pop culture. It helped put MTV on the map.
Yeah, it really did.
It helped put MTV on the map.
It was huge, yeah.
People can say, oh, you know, TBS and Ted Turner, they had the first wrestling show, Georgia Championship Wrestling, that was broadcast around the country. And not to say that that wasn't huge.
Right, right.
But WWF was part of everything. It was just miles away from New York City. The talent became superstars as they were able to get on these mainstream programs. As you mentioned with Saturday Night's Main Event, I mean, it was replacing one of the hottest shows on television in Saturday Night Live every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, which is a huge deal. That's a very big deal, you know.
You fast forward even a couple of years beyond that, from 88 through 91, they gave them that one primetime special per year on the Friday night, the main event, to lead into WrestleMania. Hogan and Andre in 1988 did 33 million people. Jeez. They struggled to hit 2 on Raw most weeks now. Yeah. And, you know, granted, there's online platforms and there's more channels, and I know there's a million excuses people can make, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, 33 million human beings decided to tune in to watch Hulk Hogan and Andre that night.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Yeah. Then the next day, they did a matinee right here in Boston. It was Hogan and Bam Bam against Andre and DiBiase. Hours after the big title shenanigans, sold out Boston. Then they flew down to Philadelphia that night, sold out the Spectrum with the same main event, Hogan and Bam Bam against Andre and DiBiase. Yeah. You can't get much hotter than that.
No, those are unique times.
Just look at the loops.
Crazy, yeah.
On your A team, you got Hulk. On your B team, you got Randy. On the C team, you got Warrior. Yeah. They even had D teams sometimes on just weekends when they could line up little college and high school shows. Yeah. You could not be any hotter than that company was. And again, it wasn't just hot to wrestling fans. It was just casual human beings that said, I want to see what this Hulk Hogan thing is. Yeah. Where I go to the pharmacy to get my medication. I remember the woman giving me my medication. I don't know how wrestling came up, but you know, she said, oh my God, back in whatever year it was, I actually went to Boston because I wanted to see what it was. Yeah. Because it was everywhere.
Well, pro wrestling was such a different... It's something weird about wrestling, and wonderfully weird, because people watch it, they kind of don't... They know it's not real, but they are so interested in like, well, how was it done? Well, that looked real, that wasn't real. And then it's just that question that's forever looming. Now with things so much further out there, but still there's an attraction to it. Yeah. There's some side of many people that will never admit it, that like pro wrestling for whatever reason. And I think that's a special part of what pro wrestling is. And it's just evolved a bit into what it is today, really. But there's always been a, whether you admit it or not, some side of someone has been kind of, what's that car crash all about, you know?
I agree with you 100%. I remember my father used to hate to take me to the Boston Garden every month. And right around the time of WrestleMania 3, I think he'd had it after about 6 or 7 months in a row. And he said, you know, this is all fake. And I'm like, well, and as I'd later learn once I get into the industry, I wasn't really wrong. How can they do that without that hurting? Right. I mean, you can see some punches and certain things and kicks and so on and so forth. But there are things that are done that are going to harm the human body, no matter how you want to categorize the industry.
Well, I think with that, the dismissive part about it was actually further off from the truth than anybody can imagine, right? Because when I learned about it, I was like, it's a lot realer than people think. And I found this out when I started to do jobs. I was an extra for like Monday Night Raw. You're going in there and you're barely talking to any of these 300-pound monsters that you're about to face. And if they wanted to go in there and shoot on you and really turn the tides on you, they can do whatever they want. So, I mean, to say that it's fake really was like, you know, the people would say like, oh, that's what they're supposed to say. But I don't think anybody realizes it's a little, you know, it doesn't do it justice at all. I mean, that's why fake has such a bad connotation.
How does that bother me?
Definitely staged or worked is the best word for it. But man, to say that it's fake, I mean, those guys beat the crap out of me so many times.
I know we got the cue from our buddy Lou Data in the back to go to the commercial break, but before we go, simply as a man that actually did it, as opposed to someone reading about it online.
Sure.
Would you compare the abuse that your body went through to other professional sports? As a basketball player, a football player?
Oh, I would certainly say football.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say more so than basketball because just the wear and tear.
Constant contact.
Yeah. Not to mention head injuries.
Well,
which I've had well over a dozen concussions, and we
the
all know.
CTE.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of work with Chris Nowinski.
Oh, yeah.
The
Right up here in
foundation
Hartford.
that he
Yeah,
has.
absolutely.
Yeah, good guy. All right, wrestling fans, right now we got the cue from the back as Lou Data switches to the hot cam. We're here with the former ECW World Champion, Just Incredible, in his premiere episode. We'll be back after this brief timeout. Wrestling fans, spring kicks off with the in-studio return of the Berzerker, John Nord, Thursday, April the 14th, to kick off Back to the 80s live wrestling in Legends Fanfest weekend. The Berzerker returns for Wrestling Insider Throwback Thursday tapings, live episodes, a cyber autograph signing, and more. Check out Boston Wrestling's exclusive print that the Berzerker will sign to you live on the air. The big man kicks off 3 big days of action, excitement, and memories. Head on over to bostonwrestling.com for complete information. Wrestling fans, VIP packages and tickets are on sale now for Boston Wrestling MWF's Back to the 80s live event in Legends Fan Fest, Saturday, April the 16th at Memorial Hall in Melrose, Massachusetts. See and meet WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, 3-time WWE Tag Team Champions Axe and Smash Demolition, WWE Hall of Famers Tito, Santana, and Cowboy Bob Orton, the Wild Berzerker, the Indestructible Warlord, Dangerous Danny Davis, and if you great fans step up and get those VIP packages and tickets now, we'll add more 80s WWF legends. VIPs take part in exclusive Q&A sessions and an 80s Legends group photo before doors open to all fans for an autograph photo fan fest and a night of hot in-ring action for memories that'll last a lifetime while helping our friends from Make-A-Wish. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's the wrestling celebration, decades in the making. Lock in the best seats in the party now at bostonwrestling.com. We'll see you live April 16th. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marotti.
And I'm John Cena Sr.
Johnny, the momentum here in Boston Wrestling continues as we continue to build and build and build. The fans want to know, how do we help? We subscribe to the Patreon, but we see all the great merchandise on that set. Coronavirus may have killed the nightlife, especially for someone like Marty, but our acclaimed eBay store is open 24/7 around the world.
Wow. Check it out.
Support Wrestling Insiders and keep wrestling legends working on eBay. Get this WWE NXT TakeOver War Games 2020 11x14 limited edition autograph poster signed by everyone on the event, number 23 of only 100 made. Includes signatures from the Undisputed Era, Johnny Gargano, Damian Priest, Tommaso Ciampa, Timothy Thatcher, Io Shirai, Tony Storm, Rhea Ripley, Dexter, Loomis, and more. Comes with authentication hologram on the back of the poster. Also comes with mystery autographed 8x10 and an on-air shout-out from WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas on Wrestling Insiders at your house. Get it now. Wrestling fans, welcome back to some great conversation with the former ECW World Heavyweight Champion, Just Incredible, making his Wrestling Insiders Extreme debut, but certainly not the final episode. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. Hopefully, forget about just into the fall, into the winter, and into the spring. And it's nice to have someone close by. Where, you know, in a pinch, or if you get a cancellation on a booking or something like that,
That's it.
and our studio is open. You know, I don't want to mention the man from Auburn, Maine that drove me nuts, but it did him quite well. But back to, again, a young you were enjoying the WWF experience, the craziness that it was, that 80s rock and wrestling boom. What got you to the point where you said, you know what, I want to do this?
It was not until I went, because we didn't have, we had cable, but we didn't get WTBS where I lived in Connecticut. And my father and mother had, friends in Danbury, which is about a 30-minute drive. We'd go over there almost every other Saturday. They had a family, the pool, whatever. So I would watch on Saturday evenings WTBS. For the first time, I saw Ric Flair, because before I only, back then you'd only see them in magazines. Mm-hmm. I'd never seen another promotion, right? And, I really started to become a big fan of the NWA and of Ric Flair, the Road Warriors, and guys like that, the Four Horsemen. And eventually, I would say this was 1989, NWA was coming to New Haven, Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
And it was a rare opportunity for me
For
to
the
see.
Bash, I
Yeah,
think, right?
yep, the
Yeah.
Great American Bash, and Ricky Steamboat, I believe, was defending the title as the champion. It was one of the rare times where he had the title. I
Yeah,
think he
they
dropped
had
it to
that great
Flair. And then,
feud with Flair in '89.
And I
yeah.
got to see Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair in New Haven live. And I must have been a sophomore or junior. I think I was a sophomore, though, in high school. And just changed my life. Seeing that live and really seeing how masterful it was. And it's a little different when you're watching wrestling live and the lights are just on and it's kind of dark all over the place. The presentation was much different than the WWE. It blew my mind. And the more I was doing, I was going on in high school, and the less interested I really did get in the scholastic part of it, which, I wish I cared more. I just didn't. I was very smart too, which kind of, killed my parents. And, in a way, I wish I could have gone back and gone to college or something. But I was doing it in the backyard with my friends, and I was
before it was quote unquote
right
backyard
before
wrestling.
backyard wrestling was a thing. We just did it for fun, taped it on video, just for ourselves to, role playing. But I was already realizing I'm pretty good at this, and I could, do what they're doing, so the selling and I was already ahead of it. And I was like, one day I went to work. This was after I graduated high school. I had a job at Stop and Shop, local grocery store, pushing carriages and bagging groceries. 15-minute break, I go to the magazines, and I'm looking through the wrestling magazines. And in the back, there's a full-page ad that said, Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp, Dare to be Great. And it actually had a phone number and address. And this was pre-internet, of course.
Yeah, sure.
Back then, if you didn't know anybody, you couldn't break into the business.
It was tough.
You had to know somebody, or somebody that knows somebody knows a wrestler, and, it's a whole song and dance.
So you're probably talking maybe 91?
89, 90.
Oh, 89? Okay.
Yeah, I was a junior in high school, going on. Yeah, maybe 90, 91. That'd be more accurate. But from then on, and I called and I spoke to Keith Hart, one of the Hart brothers, and, I worked, saved up $3,000. Bought a plane ticket, and the summer of 1992, I went to Calgary to train to become a pro wrestler.
Wow, unbelievable. So you actually took that great leap of faith, unlike so many that try and break into the industry now, where they have to have a wrestling school within 15 miles of their house, so they wouldn't consider it.
Well,
you did it the old school way.
Yeah. Well, what I don't understand is, when I went up to the Harts, it was for 2 months, 5 days a week for 2 hours, and then you get your weekends off. And then after that 2 months is done, you're a pro wrestler. But you don't get a card or somebody. What I dislike about the system around here, I notice a lot, and I'm not dissing any of the schools or any of the great schools around the areas, but what I notice is kids are in these same schools for years and years and years, and it's like, well, you're trained and you're doing shows. Like back then, it was so different because you would learn out there. You would learn at the shows. That was doing bumps in rings in a warehouse isn't going to help you. It's getting out there and hustling it and really taking that leap was what helped me, because there was really nothing else. I didn't know anything else.
Did they still have some version of Stampede going at that time?
It wasn't Stampede. It was called Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling, which, funny enough, I came back home for a couple of months. And when they started running, October 16th, 1992, I went back up there for 10 weeks. Every Fridays they'd have shows. And on my 19th birthday, I wrestled my first match out there.
Wow.
And I think my fourth match was against Chris Jericho.
Really?
And my seventh match was against Lance Storm.
So you were working with some pretty
a couple of other guys
with a lot of great potential, we'll call them.
A couple of guys that were wrestling out of Mexico and going to Japan. So it was it was still, in front of 150 people. But still, it was, some good talent there, and I learned quite a bit.
Now, as someone that was paying their dues, breaking in, how were you living out there? Were you staying at a hotel?
I was staying at
one of the boys' houses?
I was staying at one of the promoters' houses with one of the kids I went to wrestling school with.
Oh.
And, I'd have to put up the ring, tear it down, clean all the kinds of, just do, running around for them all week long to promote the shows and just hustling. But I wasn't making any money, and literally, and I went up there about 220, jacked, and at the end of the 10 weeks, I was like 190 pounds.
Really?
And it was heading towards Christmas time, Christmas of '92, and I just said, I'm done. That was as much as far as I was going to go out there. And I came back home and started doing some indies locally around this area in '93. And then lo and behold, in '93, I went to a WWE house show at the old New Haven Coliseum, funny enough. And you were always told to, go to these tapings. The times were different then. Security wasn't a big deal.
You had to walk down that big ramp.
I brought my bag. Tony Gurria and Rene Goulet were there. They were the agents, what they call producers now. But I introduced myself. I said, Tony, Mr. Gurria, whatever. Told them I was trained by the Hearts up in Calgary.
That goes a long way.
Right, wanted to say hello. If you ever need anybody, I'm here. And they said, oh, you could watch. Get you a seat. Whatever. Very kind. So I watched the show. They didn't need me, obviously. And as I was saying goodbye to everyone, and thank you very much for letting me watch the show, he goes, well, if you're ever looking for work, we're starting a new show out of Manhattan called Monday Night Raw. We're going to be needing guys to, on a weekly, bi-weekly basis to go down there as extras. And I gave him my number, and that's how that connection with the WWE started.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I look at, before we dance away too far from the wrestling school part of it, what bothers me is, and and here I am, the guy that tries to book a lot of the talent that comes from these schools on our events, but I look at it like, if you were never a full-time professional wrestler, and that means, doesn't mean you're a main eventer, you could be at the, looking unpredictable Johnny Rods.
A journeyman.
The bottom of the card. If you never did it full-time, how can you teach someone the wrestling business? You can teach moves, but that's like taking a giant 500-piece jigsaw puzzle and dumping it on a table.
Correct.
Okay, this is a nice little piece. This is one move, but this little piece of a move goes over here. If they never lived it, they can't put that 500-piece jigsaw puzzle, in my opinion, they don't know how to put the puzzle together themselves. So how the hell are they supposed to train people to do it?
Yeah.
And what irritates me is, and I love the talent. Anyone that loves this business as much as I do, I want them around me.
Sure.
But I do get frustrated in the fact that I think it's an odd system where they pay to go to these wrestling schools where they're not getting a true professional wrestling training. Then they go to work for these promoters. They're not what they quote unquote could or should be at that point, but we're paying them.
Well, I think the biggest problem.
It's kind of odd to me. You know what I mean?
And you're right. And I hope I don't get into trouble, but this is just the facts.
You with me, you will.
This business was a very select business going back to the old days. And just for an example, when I went to wrestling camp at the Hearts, 12 of us started, a couple of ladies and 10 or so guys, whatever. And by the end of camp, there was only 2 of us left, and I being one of them.
Do you remember who the other one was?
Brett Farrell was his real name. He wrestles as Big Daddy Hammer in Toronto. Still does it part-time.
Oh, really? Still works? Well,
still does it. Just do it once in a while. But and the reason they do that is people think, oh, they're just mean. They're trying to take your money. Possibly. Yeah. But they're trying to also see who's tough enough to deal with the bullshit, to put in the work.
To be a pro. And there's a lot that goes into being a pro.
And I think with the way the business changed, a lot of these schools are really part of a pay-to-play system where they, if you want to be on this show, you got to be part of this school, or you got to pay or sell this many tickets, whether you're good or not, whether you should be in the ring or not. I was at a show last night that I participated in. The show was fantastic out in Lidlaw, great house and everything, but a lot of the kids were just god awful. And they've been doing it forever. I've been there for a couple of years now, doing it, whenever they have shows, and they never change, they never get better. And it's because they just go there and they think they know what they're doing, and they're more worried about who's going over and is my music right, and instead of it's we let too many people in, because back then they would have never allowed these kids to step in the ring, much less to be running shows. And now you have there's more fans than there are, or there's more boys than there are fans, because we let them in. We shouldn't have let them in. The club became too big.
It turned into, me, from my point of view, Little League Baseball.
Yep.
If you get on with $100, you're guaranteed to play 3 innings.
Right.
No matter how good, how bad you may be, you're in. and you're quote unquote one of the boys. I mean, I don't know how they refer to the females now, if they're called one of the boys.
I don't know. I'm afraid to
one
go
of the
there.
girls. I mean,
I'm afraid to even
we'll
mention
probably
it.
get into trouble even if you ask
Yeah,
nowadays.
so-
You'll offend someone no matter what.
Yeah.
But I mean, man, it's frustrating to me because again, they're genuinely good human beings. They want to do it. They want to learn.
Yes.
They want to know.
And everybody I'm talking about, I mean, most of them are stand-up guys and gals.
Good human beings.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately the route they've gone hasn't been, let me pack up my bag and go learn from Al Snow. Let me go pack up my bag and learn from the Dudleys down in Florida. Let me go pack up my bag and go to some of the really good schools they have out west. And everybody wants to be close to home. In Eastern Massachusetts, I can think of 4 schools off the top of my head within 45 minutes to an hour of each other. Are there that many true athletes that have it to become pro wrestlers that we need 4 schools within 45 minutes of each other? Come on.
Yeah.
And that's what angers me. Thank you, Captain Lou. Have you ever thought about opening a school yourself?
I have, and but it's just, again, I think it's oversaturation. You know, again, do I need, again,
for a real pro to say that, compared to what's out there now.
I mean, we already have Slick Wagner Brown, who is a good friend of mine, has a phenomenal.
I love Slick.
Slick has a great school out near Hartford. Paul Roma has a school out in Bridgeport, so
and
they're
he
both
was a pro.
Yeah,
he was full time.
And there's, you know, that's 30 minutes from my house. So again, like you say, how many wrestling schools? How many wrestlers do we really need?
I don't know if you've ever watched our Thursday night series that we do with Marty, but he has this idea about opening all these schools in Florida. And I didn't want to burst his bubble, but I'm like, Marty, do you realize how many schools there
already are
down in that area? But, you know, if that's what he wants to do,
but the
that's what he
problem,
wants to
but
do.
then once again, it becomes about trying to make money off of kids that want to be wrestlers but have no business being in the wrestling business. And what we're doing is we're diluting the wrestling business.
Pissing on it.
And there's no regulation, so who's to say that who can do it and who cannot do it? So I think that's been a big problem, and that's just allowed. It hurts the business because, okay, I see fans. Let me backtrack. I see a lot of the men and women that are out there on the indies, ringside at Raw, ringside at AEW, and then I'm working with you on I would have never, the Hearts would have kicked my ass if I was paid for a ticket anywhere. You don't. You know, even when I was a kid, I knew that. When I first came from Calgary, nobody had to tell me that. I wasn't going to pay for a ticket to a WWE show because you're one of the boys. If you're an NBA or a professional ball player, you want to go to a show, you call somebody at the office and you say, can I come to the show? You don't pay a ticket. And I think we got to stop acting like marks and act like professionals. And very few people do that. And I don't know why. Maybe that lesson hasn't been taught, but maybe it's 2 different worlds. But until we do that as a whole, it's going to be a problem. We're going to have oversaturation of men and women, and a lot of them really don't belong. And that's a shame. I hate to say that because everybody should have an opportunity to do what they love. But you know what I'm saying?
I agree with you 110%. And the one thing I think maybe that a lot of these guys and now girls miss out on is there's a lot of things you can do in wrestling that don't involve
have
you
to
have
be
to be in the ring.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's ring crew. There's so much support staff that's needed if you're working for a quality promotion. That's
Helping
gonna have a
promote.
good crowd.
What a concept.
Street teamwork and things like that. But again, someday, because what I find obviously, but amusing to some degree, is that every time we have a true pro come in and we have a conversation, it's almost verbatim what you said, just maybe with slightly different words and slightly different experiences. You know, the whole industry. I don't know if you heard the recent mandate that's been going around on social media about WWE. They don't want to hire indie talent anymore. They want to go out. They want to find college football players that couldn't make it to the NFL, collegiate wrestlers, people with great size.
And the reason,
they can make superstars.
And the reason why is, and again, you could just say this. I was one of those guys, but very few people now. The indies produce smaller athletes in general.
Yes.
When I was coming up in the Hearts, I was 220, jacked, gassed to the gills, and Owen and I were the smallest ones in the locker room. So in the WWE, that has now changed. It used to be Brett, Sean, myself, 1, 2, 3 Kid at that smaller size. Now we would be considered Randy Orton size, almost bigger.
1, 2, 3 Kid would be one of the bigger guys on the roster right now.
And so
he was the midget.
And I think guys like Adam Cole, and even though they're tremendous wrestlers,
they look
awesome,
like little children.
They look very small. And I think what Vince wants is a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", looks like Razor Ramon, larger than life. And people like that don't necessarily want to get into pro wrestling like they used to. A lot of the stories you hear from back in the day, Scott Hall, 18, 19-year-old kid, got into the wrestling business because Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo came into the strip club. He used to bounce, said he was a big guy. And they started to talk. He goes, hey, I didn't get into this business, Scott asked. He goes, oh, this, that, and the other thing, because you look great. And that's the whole thing of that look. Not everybody's 6'5", 6'6" that can do this. You know, I'm certainly not. But, you know, there's other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're 5'5" and 125 pounds, not everybody's Rey Mysterio. Not saying you can't.
One is okay.
Not saying you can't, but
not everybody.
Not everybody. And that's where Vince is having a hard time with NXT and smaller guys, smaller, you know, athletes.
And I think, you know what? If you want to have a promotion filled with them,
sure.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
But if you bring up a guy like Adam Cole in a WWE ring on Raw or SmackDown, I think he's going to look awfully tiny.
Yeah.
And that's not, I think he's a great talent.
Sure.
But, ... is he the type of guy that they're going to want to put on that marquee to try and sell 80,000 tickets at a WrestleMania?
Right.
And I think that's what they're after right now.
Yeah.
And those little, you know, $250 a month wrestling schools are not producing that type of talent.
No. Very few guys that fit that physical attribute that they're looking for. Back then, it was like, you know, football players would want to be pro wrestlers. It was almost like if you didn't make it, it was a natural transition. If you were a wrestler coming out of college and you didn't make it in, you know, whatever, because wrestling, there's no major leagues. Like after you're done on the collegiate level,
right.
Like the Brock Lesnar's of the world, you get into that. There's very few of that going on anymore, you know?
I just remember quickly, again, before we go to break, before Captain Lou castrates me, but I remember I was 13 when I broke in through this actual studio. Tony Rumble came down to promote his show on a wrestling talk show, saw all the equipment, and he said, why don't you come and tape it?
Yeah.
And we did. And I remember 13-year-old kid, 9th grade, you know, you quote unquote know, like we were talking about earlier, you know there's something that's not real.
Right.
But this was a locker room filled with men that would kick your fucking ass if you disrespected them or what they did. And that is missing now. As Kevin Nash, I think, one of the great quotes that Kevin Nash came up with on an interview I came across on YouTube, he says, now it looks like they have a bunch of Abercrombie and Fitch models.
It's true. It's true. And these were, back in the day, like when you'd meet, there were crusty, big, nasty men. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, wrestling fans, right now we're going to take a brief timeout. When we come back, unfortunately, we're going to wrap up the show. Stand by. Wrestling fans, VIP packages and tickets are on sale now for Boston Wrestling MWF's Back to the 80s live event and Legends Fanfest, Saturday, April the 16th at Memorial Hall in Melrose, Massachusetts. See and meet WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, three-time WWE Tag Team Champions Axe and Smash Demolition, WWE Hall of Famers Tito, Santana, and Cowboy Bob Orton, the Wild Berzerker, the indestructible Warlord, Dangerous Danny Davis, and if you great fans step up and get those VIP packages and tickets now, we'll add more 80s WWF Legends. VIPs take part in exclusive Q&A sessions and an 80s Legends group photo before doors open to all fans for an autograph photo fan fest and a night of hot in-ring action for memories that'll last a lifetime while helping our friends from Make-A-Wish. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's the wrestling celebration, decades in the making. Lock in the best seats in the party now at bostonwrestling.com. We'll see you live April 16th. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marotti.
And I'm Mr. USA WWE Hall of Famer Tony Atlas.
The road to WrestleMania has begun. Wrestling fans are looking to add to their man caves. You got to see what we have in the eBay store.
Check it out.
Support Wrestling Insiders and keep Wrestling Legends working on eBay. At Survivor Series, it was champion versus champion as WWE Champion Drew McIntyre battled Universal Champion Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman. Get this 11x14 poster autographed by all three men. Limited edition, number 42 of only 50, with authentication hologram on the back of the poster itself. Comes with a mystery autographed 8x10 photo and an on-air shout-out from WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas on Wrestling Insiders at your house. Get it now. All right, wrestling fans, welcome back to Wrestling Insiders Extreme. It's the premiere of our new friend, Just Incredible. We had 6 tremendous weeks of New Jack. Just Incredible's down the road. You know, we could be seeing him as much as we saw our old buddy up in Auburn. But, you know, I think it'll make for more interesting conversation, as long as we don't get into everything that was on CNN that week, but that's a different story for a
I know where you're
different
going
time.
with that, and I'll stay away from it.
Tell me this, April of 1994, Gardner, Massachusetts, you came to one of Tony's shows with Paul Roma.
Yes.
And you were not P.J. Walker, you were Suicide Samson. Where the heck did that name come from? Was that a Tony thing?
That was a Tony thing.
Oh, he wanted to create his own persona.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, he was trying to do something a little different, and yeah, it was totally. I forget about that, but yeah, that happened, you know. And I think we only did 1 or 2 shows, if I'm not
You
mistaken.
didn't work much for him. And I
No.
tell you, you were a guy that I thought was really good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was still young
Yeah.
and green, but yeah, no, but it was. I don't remember much of it. I remember it was at a high school.
In Gardner, Massachusetts, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Kern worked as Doink.
That's right. That's
Damien
right.
Demento was trying to reinvent himself as, I think he was called 3D. It was
Oh,
an
okay.
all-purple gimmick, and he wore a mask because his stint in WWF was pretty much
Yeah.
coming to an end. So he
Yeah.
was trying to come up with something to stay relevant.
What a
to
good
try
what a
and stay
good
with
look
them.
he had too.
I mean, if you're talking 1960s, 1970s wrestling, he would have looked like a top guy in every territory, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I'm still surprised
That
though that they
odd,
couldn't.
those movements
Yeah,
that
they
he
couldn't
had.
pull that off because the
Yeah.
costume looked great. He
Yeah.
looked great, but
You know how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
When there's limited options,
Yeah.
you only have a couple of opinions to go by. Back in
That's true.
through the
Yeah.
early 80s, you know, it was like Major League Baseball. There were 25, 30 different teams you could go and play
Right.
for and make a full-time living at
Yep.
it. Maybe not the big money that the guys
Right.
get nowadays,
Yep.
but a full-time living to take care of your family and yourself.
Right.
And unfortunately, it is what it is. But I never forget that. That was one guy where I was so young, I wasn't one to make suggestions to someone like Tony, who
Sure.
not that I ever saw him on TV, but I did know him from wrestling magazines,
Right.
and
Yep.
I was impressed to say I was ringing his bell.
Yeah.
I was playing his
Oh, yeah.
music.
Yeah.
I was taping the match sheet to the wall and
Sure.
things because I got into it through the TV production. But he saw after a couple of shows, and he got to know me a little bit. I had an aptitude for the wrestling part of it. The TV production stuff was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't give a fuck about that.
Right,
I want to
right.
do the wrestling stuff. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's when the great adventure began for me in high school, and I had to work my parents into saying, well, this will be great for my college resume that I'm doing all this production work with the wrestling.
Yeah, that's great. And but the one thing about Tony is he had a very, very big name.
Yeah.
In the area.
Yeah.
You know, everybody knew who he was. So he was a bit of a local legend, you know, around the Boston wrestling, and that was pretty cool. You know, he was around a long time.
Hell of a college basketball player too.
Oh,
which
was
a
he
lot of
really?
People didn't realize.
I
Yeah,
didn't
hell
know
of a
that.
college I don't remember if it was. Was it BU or was it UMass? I don't remember what school, but I mean, he was pretty good. And the sad thing is, you know, I think he knew the whole time he wasn't going to live to be an old age. Both of his parents had a heart disease, and they died in their early 40s, and I think he was 44 when he passed.
I know
it's
he
the
was
same
young,
day as
yeah.
Eddie Guerrero.
I didn't know him that well.
Yeah.
You know, very just in passing, but yeah, I knew he was young. That's a shame.
Well, what he did for me, I'll be eternally grateful to him. There are still times, again, I don't know what kind of a spiritual person you are, but I reach out to him in my thoughts. And my buddy Percy and another guy named the Jackal that was instrumental in what Tony did. And it was tough. And that's what led to, originally, that was what was going to lead to our promotion starting. And then that's when, as I told you, I met Ed Cohen. And I
Right,
had my
okay.
tremendous, lengthy 9 months working with them before they started to have the need to bring in X amount of people that were with the WCW.
Yes,
At
yes,
that
yes.
point, from their offices down in Georgia, and they didn't need people that weren't full-time around. So,
Right,
but you know
right.
what? I'll always look back at it on what a gift from Tony.
Yes.
What a gift from Ed. What that man did for me.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the call. We had a show on a Saturday night, and after the SmackDown taping, our friend Sue called me and let me know that he had passed. And one of the worst feelings in my life still is that I couldn't go to his services because we had the event that night. And X-Pac, Sean and I, we did a great tribute to him in the ring. And he said, you know, he'd kick your ass if you missed this event to go to his wake. And isn't that the crazy thing about our industry? And that
It is.
he was 110% right.
It is
that
crazy,
Percy
yeah.
would have kicked my ass if I skipped that show to go to his services.
Yeah.
But under normal human circumstances,
Sure.
you wouldn't give it a second thought. You'd go to the services.
He was one of the true nicest people ever. Like, I remember one thing about him, and I never forget it. My dad used to always talk to Percy. My dad would go backstage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and because he was friends with a bunch of, because I'd been around since I was a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
My old man was always welcome back there. He used to sneak beers to Arn Anderson on Sundays if we had house shows around here, because they'd close on Sundays.
Oh, they would drive
So my
down?
dad
Yep.
would go to, come from home with a case of beer for Arn, but he'd see Percy once in a while and always called him Mr. Polacco. And my father always thought that was so cool, you know what I mean? Because, they'd see him on TV, get a kick out of it. And Percy was always so nice to the family and to everyone around, you know what I mean? It always stood out. Always stood out, and I'll never forget that stuff.
I don't want to get going because I'll go in that direction, but I still miss the man every day. So as my brain continues to drift now as we went in that direction, but certainly Raw, they turned that into the show of the unexpected. I don't think cost-wise, where they were looking for something cheap, Manhattan Center real estate was not cheap.
No.
But what an awesome, cool venue. Just literally a block away from MSG down there.
Yep.
What were your first impressions of the Manhattan Center? I don't want to get too much into WWF because this is an ECW themed show.
Sure.
I want to look at the early part of your career too.
It was like a big old ballroom, and we were dressed. It wasn't a good, they didn't have big dressing rooms. You're just dressing sometimes in hallways and stuff. But what was amazing to me now, especially looking back to was then, like you would go into the arena part and that was almost like silence and dead silence. Everything would be set up. There was no pyro or big stages then, back then. And so you'd go into the ring and ringside, it was silent. Like you couldn't hear anything. Whereas today, everybody's in there doing bumps and practicing 50 million things. All the action was in the locker room and I remember running the ropes for the first time on my first TV taping there, and people that were at ringside kind of stopped to look at me, and I was like, that's kind of weird, because if you were out there working stuff out, almost like they would look at you if you're unprofessional. You don't know, you know what I mean? You didn't want to smarten anybody up, because kayfabe was still very much a thing in '93,
absolutely.
'94 even, and people may not think so, but so that just the difference in then to today is just, even for the WWE, which now has walkthroughs and stuff like that, which I think is, to this day, I think it's still a mistake, because all of these people are very capable of doing it the way we used to do it. Why do you have to walk through and have all of the, you know what I mean? You're professionals. You know how to do this stuff,
Silly. I don't want to knock Ronda Rousey, but even at the point where they would, give her a week to practice a pay-per-view match at a hotel room where they'd set up a ring in a ballroom or something like that. And the funny thing is, one of the guys that works here, he's actually a professor at Harvard. His wife did judo with Ronda in Wakefield, Mass, which is just down the road.
Okay.
But, to me, is that pro wrestling? Or is that Cirque du Soleil?
It's
or whatever they call
Cirque
that
du
out in
Soleil.
Vegas.
It is something completely different than professional wrestling. I don't know what that is, but it is.
I think everybody's trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember working with guys that wanted me to remember everything and go through a million things, and I'd watch myself back and I would notice that my character was a bit off, or I was a bit. You're in there thinking, and the last thing you need to be doing when you're in there is thinking, what's next? And you shouldn't do that, because like I could tell my character, I wasn't able to be my character. I was thinking, I was in my head too much. You should go out there and call a lot of it out. You should have a line, like an outline, because if you're worried about memorizing, you're not going to be able to shine when the lights are on you and the camera, and you're able to ad-libbing. Even in movies, some of the best stuff is those unscripted parts that, a great actor might improv. Improvisational. I mean, look, it doesn't take rocket science to know if Ric Flair chops you and you chop him back, or an exchange happens. I think pro wrestlers have done it long enough that how to get into and out of exchanges that may pop up. It's sad. We've let it. I was a special guest referee at a show last night. That shows, those guys I was telling you about, were not a lot of people knew how to work, and it was literally embarrassing where they were shooting each other off the ropes, nobody knowing where to go with it, I mean, it was just something that if I were to do that, if you were told if you were to get shot off the ropes and the person doing it didn't call a spot, you were either to hold on so you don't look bad or just clobber them, knock them the F out, you know, so to prevent yourself from looking bad. And it's like...
And exposing the business.
It was, and that was, I mean, last night was an expose. And it's a shame because I like all of these people very much.
Yeah, again,
very much.
I think 99.9% of the people that want to get into our industry, they do it for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
They love what they see.
Yeah.
You know, there are some that just think, oh, this is going to be my, you know, I'm going to be a Bella twin, and this is going to be my ticket on to reality shows and things like that. But for those that get into wrestling because they want to get into wrestling, their heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
They're genuinely good people.
Yeah.
They just...
And they were doing hardcore stuff, but they're working the hardcore stuff. I was like, guys, if you choose to go down the hardcore route, you got to take it, or else don't choose to do it because it looked even worse, you know. That's the sad part. It's like you gotta stay in your wheelhouse, and
there's nothing that looks worse than a weak chair shot. When they
and then they were also doing that very weak, and then putting their hands up at the same time, even weaker. It's like, bro, my son could have taken that.
Yeah, that's what it does. It
Without
looks like
putting your
little
hands
kids
up.
having fun time. Thank you, Captain.
It does. It really does. That's not what I do.
It drives me insane, and that's why I'm such a stickler for. You know, we have, if you look at one of our shows, we have guys that come from so many different parts of the country because I just don't want the garbage. I think if you don't give the fans quality, they're not going to respect what you do, and they're not going to want to come back.
One of the biggest problems in our industry is this. I think there are so many levels of independent wrestling. But then you go to some indie shows where nobody belongs in a ring.
No.
And the problem is the fans don't know. People may not be educated to the names of these promotions because there's so many. You may not be hip to it. If you're a mom and dad taking a kid to a show and you see what I saw last night, that's a disservice to pro wrestling because you might, up the road might have been a really good show and you'll say, I'm never going to bring my kids to this again.
We're all under the same
umbrella. And then that causes a problem, not just for you and me, but for the whole industry. And that's why I wish there was some kind of way that we could prevent that.
Some kind of regulation that wouldn't, the independents are tough, where it wouldn't be a huge financial burden, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If there was a way to commission,
just
when I was around as a kid, wrestling regulated itself. If you didn't belong, kick the fuck out of you.
You're blacklisted or blackballed.
You're not coming back.
You're not working anymore.
But like you said, or as I said, when we get to the Little League Baseball portion of it, it's everywhere. I mean, it's...
There should be something along the lines of that just at least recognizes you're run by professionals and you're putting a professional product out there. And if you're not with this group, but then of course you get politics involved, but like if you're not with this, then it's considered mudhole wrestling like Jim Cornette likes to call it. But man, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way because it's just, it's sad. It's sad out there sometimes.
I don't understand why at some point, especially now with Vince McMahon, they made that mandate about the independents. Why not create WWE-like shows around the country?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to just doing, they do those Florida loops for the NXT talent. And at other times with the bigger name NXT talent, tour the country. But why not WWE try and brand itself, with high school fundraisers? And at a time, you were around when they used to do a lot of those types of shows.
I still did a lot of the high schools.
When business was really down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to give the guys work. Why not try and come up with their own form of independent wrestling where at least it has, if you have that stamp on it, at least it is someone that is a true pro or is getting to the point of being a true pro, as opposed to, again, the kid in Little League Baseball, that couldn't hit the ball if his life depended on it, but he's paying $250 a month, so we got to put him on the show.
Right.
That's what's killed it to me, and that's what makes it so frustrating for the events we run. But that's a different story for a different time. My good friend Captain Lou Data from the Goonies was just out here. He gave us the signal. Unfortunately, we got to go. It's almost like the end of the old Saturday Night's Main Events on NBC when they'd play Take Me Home.
I remember that. That's a good one.
But the good news is, next Tuesday night, Just Incredible is going to be back with us.
Yes.
And we're going to dive officially into his world of ECW. We get to know the man a little bit here. We're going to get to know much more about his time in ECW. on Wrestling Insiders Extreme. We thank you very much for joining us. If you're watching during the Tuesday night premiere after NXT, we love all of your little comments in the comment section. The Super Chat button is always open for business. If you are not watching the premiere, shame on you. But you can still leave comments in the comment section below. Give the show a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. All of those little things. It lets YouTube know that you like us. And it showcases us to the millions of fans that don't know we exist. Because, you know, after the 80s boom, a lot of fans left pro wrestling and never came back. After the Attitude Era and the Monday Night War, a lot of fans left and never came back. But once they find cool talk shows like these, as we've seen with the continued rapid growth, I think they're going to find us, and I think they're going to love us.
Absolutely.
All right, wrestling fans, for Just Incredible, I'm Dan Marotti. We'll see you next Tuesday night after WWE NXT. Be happy, be healthy, be safe. Good night from Boston.
Cheer. Why, hello. I would ask what was on your mind, but I already know. You want to know what has got my beard looking oh so majestic. And I'll tell you, it's sexy as hell beard care. Coconut oil, vitamin E oil, almond oil, both sweet and bitter, shea butter, it's all natural. Yes, JTG has actually come out with a high quality product. So support your boy by going to sahbeardcare.com and take one step closer to becoming sexy as hell. Cheer. Ooh, cheer. You know?
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marotti.
MJ in the house.
Future WWE Hall of Famer, mind you. Let me tell you this.
I'm not in there yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
But you will be.
Yeah, I will.
You know Sean wants to be the first three-timer.
Three-timer,
yeah.
yeah.
There you go. Let me tell you, you enjoy the in-studio shoot interviews 4 times a week. It isn't cheap to put these productions together, folks. We need your
No,
help.
because they got to pay me.
Coronavirus has killed the nightlife in a lot of ways. We are night owls, Marty and I, but that's a different story for a different time. One way you can help is to check out the great merchandise we have in the Boston Wrestling eBay store. It is perfect for any wrestling man cave or any collection.
That's right. Check it out.
Support Wrestling Insiders in-studio shoot interviews on eBay with this brand new personally autographed WWE Royal Rumble 2021 11x14 poster signed by WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, his advocate Paul Heyman, and Kevin Owens. Reigns and Owens battled for the Universal title in a last standing match January 31st in the Thunderdome in Tampa. This limited edition collector's poster is number 31 of only 50 produced. Comes with WWE authentication hologram on the poster itself. Also comes with an on-air shout-out from WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas and a bonus autographed 8x10 photo. Get this rare, awesome collectible for your man cave and help keep wrestling legends working now. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marotti.
I'm just incredible.
Unbelievable. Forget about going trick-or-treating this weekend. The real treat is coming up next. It's a brand new Wrestling Insiders Extreme. Stand by. Wrestling fans, I'm Dan Marotti, joined by the former ECW World Heavyweight Champion, and I think even a couple of tag team title reigns in there too, right?
I have, yeah. Quite a few.
Did it all. He gave you guys so many memorable moments, the blood, the sweat, the tears. We're going to dive into it. Unfortunately, we were only able to produce the 6 episodes with New Jack that we did, but we have a great superstar like Just Incredible. You've seen some of the unique episodes we had with the Sinister Minister, Father James Mitchell, when we were down in Tampa, WrestleMania week. So a lot of great content coming to this show to give you guys a front row seat, forget about a front row seat, maybe even locker room access to what was the world of ECW. The superstars, the places, the moments, the memories, the events. That's what this show is all about Tuesday nights after NXT. If you could, if you're watching the premiere, share the link on social media. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Facebook wrestling groups, let us know what's going on. I'd love to have Justin up here every week, even though we are on every week. We'd love to have him here taping every week. It would make things a lot easier on my poor agitated lower back right now, but I don't want to complain because we do have a lot of fun on these shows. But let's get to the meat. We talked a lot about you, your history, your thoughts on the business, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about 1997.
Sure.
There wasn't a hell of a lot going on with Aldo Montoya.
No, not much. not too much.
And it started off with a bang. I mean, Ted DiBiase tried to buy you.
Yep.
But it just, for whatever the reason, it just seemed to slowly go downhill. And as someone that just enjoyed WWE, I enjoyed the Portuguese man of war, Aldo Montoya.
Yeah, I mean, this was, God, I'm trying to be correct here. I think I was 21 when I was offered the job. So I barely have a year and a half experience. And most of my experience was with the WWE, WWF at the time, doing, jobs on television. So for me, my debut was not only debuting with a character that I really didn't, I got my outfit the day I showed up for TV.
Oh, really?
First time I'd ever worn a mask, ever. And this is the first time I get to do a promo ever on Monday Night Raw. So a lot of firsts are going on. So,
nervous?
Very, oh my God, I was so nervous. But still, I learned so much. And, they tried different things with me. They even put me with Jake the Snake Roberts at one point.
Yeah.
And,
you did that thing with, I think, Lawler and the Booze.
Yeah, but I did that. And I did some stuff with Jeff Jarrett as well. And I think in '97, Just Incredible was running its course. And I remember things that were starting to change a bit. I was well liked in the office. I was still on the road, and I had a very good relationship with the old man, Vince McMahon. And but what was happening was Scott and Kevin had just left for WCW, and that shift was happening. And I went to Vince and asked for a meeting. I went up to Stamford to Titan Towers. And I was like, I could do more. I'm really coming into my own, and I was. I mean, the reports that the agents were giving back to the office were, I was having great matches. Sometimes the match of the night, they let me go with like Chris Candido, opening match for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, do whatever. And you're giving two young guys that opportunity. We're dying to work, So we were just doing really good stuff. And I said, help me do something, help me help you kind of speech to Vince. And he's like, well, I really don't have anything that I could think of right now. And I said, well, Vince, if you don't have anything for me in that capacity or for Aldo, because I knew the Aldo thing was running its course, I said, just will you please give me my release? I was like, Scott and Kevin were down there and they were starting to gain power, and they're like, we can get you a nice job over here, get you paid. And Vince said, I can't. He goes, you got another year left. He goes, we've put in a lot of time to kind of cultivate you as a talent. What I will do, well, as far as giving me a break, and they did.
Well, but I mean, as far as the promotional time that they put into Aldo Montoya, I don't think.
No,
I think they could have done a lot more with it.
Not from that aspect.
Yeah, I think they could have done a lot more with it.
They could have, but I think that I don't think I was ready when they could have. I think I was still learning.
Fair point.
But anyways, I agreed with everything he was saying, but he goes, the reason is it'd be a bad look to have another one of my guys going over there. Not that Aldo would have gone over there, but the perception of another wrestler leaving for WCW after, certain guys had already left. He goes, I can't do that. He goes, but what I can do is I'll send you to Memphis, learn how to work as a heel. In 6 weeks, we'll bring you back, repackage you, and do something else with you and debut you on Raw. So I went down there, worked for Lawler for 6 weeks, started to do something like a Just Incredible. Wasn't really that, just I was finding.
What name were you using?
PG 187.
Oh, okay.
Similar to a New Jack thing, a gangster look. I teamed with PG 13.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, and but that really wasn't. I'm not a gangster. I wasn't a hip hop guy. It wasn't really working. But the last night I was there in Memphis, ECW was there as part of the Jerry Lawler angle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And all of them are there. Sandman, Sabu, Van Dam, Heyman, Dreamer, the whole lot. And Candido was there as well. And basically, Chris told me how wonderful it was. He was working in the office with Paul, and he had a little power. And he goes, you really should come up here, and the pay's better than you probably think. And he was right. And, long story short, Paul agreed and went to Vince and got my last year from WWE signed over to him to ECW, and that's how I made that transition to be full-time ECW.
When you were Aldo in WWF, did you ever transition to the point where you had one of those downside guarantees, or were you still a percentage of the house type of guy?
Oh, I always had a percentage of the house ones. I had.
So you never had the downside guarantee where you guaranteed $100 grand no matter what?
No, I had that when I went back in the 2001.
The second time,
yeah. And so yeah, I still had the old booking arrangement of 10 shows.
Yeah, per year, yeah.
At $150, which all of them still had at that time.
Yeah, everybody, yeah.
Until wasn't until
Mark Merrow, he started the trend of all people, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe where you lucked out is that you were under the mask.
Yeah.
Outside of the the people that read things like the Observer and the Torch.
Right.
Most of the fans wouldn't have a clue if you came back under a different persona.
Right.
That you were the same guy that was the Portuguese man.
And I think that was part of the reason too for Vince to put me in something like that for several reasons. So, but either way, look, I mean, I learned so much, and this is what really helped me in ECW, was that. I'd been on television. I'd been on national television. I'd wrestled at, a couple of Royal Rumbles and Survivor Series, and here I am going into, ECW Arena, which is a lot smaller, and not very many people have that kind of television experience. So right away, Paul has somebody with that experience.
Young veteran.
Right. And, been around. I've done 200 plus dates a year for a couple of years, been all over the world, and my work showed it. It just in placement and in knowing how to work certain cameras and that. And right away, he's like, well, we just got to give him the push and kind of structure, his gimmick in a certain way and give him some heat. And it worked out. It just worked out really well right off the bat.
Before we hit ECW, tell us a little bit about the Memphis Experience. You were there for 6 weeks. Did they have like a house show loop, or was it just TV tapings?
They had a house show loop. It was basically the same thing every week. And I'm trying to remember it. It was god-awful, though. It was really god-awful. We did Memphis television Saturday morning. I was staying in Nashville, which is about 4 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we stayed in Nashville, drove 4 hours to Memphis, did live studio wrestling in a studio, very similar to this, believe it or not, at 9 o'clock. And then we would drive back to Nashville for the evening house show, do that, and then we'd have Sunday, we would do something small in the area. Tuesdays, we would do Louisville at the Louisville Gardens.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Okay. And then, God, and I'd like to think in one of those days, I think it was Thursday night, we did house shows in Memphis as well. And it's like somewhere down there, there'd be like a casino show. But man, it was normally Louisville, Nashville, and Memphis. Because a lot of those smaller towns had kind of went away, but horrible.
What
really
were the houses
horrible.
like in those big arenas?
150.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean we were at the Louisville, Kentucky arena.
150 people.
Yeah, the old Louisville Gardens.
God,
the Louisville Gardens holds about 6,000
Yeah.
people, and to have 150 people, 200 tops, was.
Why bother?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
really,
it was
why
bad.
pay the rent? I know in
Yeah.
Mid-South Coliseum. I think that was Monday night. That was the big
That's
one.
right. That's
And
what it was.
They
yeah.
had a plum deal with the Louisville Garden because no one ever
Right.
really ever rented it on Monday night.
Right.
The Mid-South Coliseum got all the gimmick money from the food sales and so on and so forth, and they gave it to them. I don't know where I heard this or read this, but I believe it was for like $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't costing them that much to get the Mid-South Coliseum. I don't know what the deals might have been at some of those other bigger arenas.
Bad,
but I mean, even at the Mid-South Coliseum, 150 people?
Yeah.
And was Lawler still on top?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I worked with Jerry all the time.
Talk about the last of the Mohegans,
It
huh?
really was.
I mean, it was great that the territory still existed.
Dwayne Johnson was there as Cabana. What was his name? Something Flex Cabana.
Flex Cabana.
Yeah, he was down there. It was. I'm glad I did it, just because I could say I did it. But it was in its dying days. Brian Christopher was still down there.
Yeah, that would have been before his debut.
Yeah, before he came up. So, but it was okay. It was miserable.
Now, were you still on a WWE pay structure, or were you on a Memphis pay structure?
I was on both. Vince was giving me a per week, which basically paid for my bills at home.
Yep, okay.
And then I got $40 a night in Memphis, which was, it was pretty bad.
I mean, we've heard so many stories from the guys that worked that Memphis territory over the years, and just the struggles. And I remember the Nasties when they were here around Christmas time as part of the Paul Bearer toy drive. You know, they had a one-bedroom apartment with one bed that they shared with the Rockers, and they'd share the bed and the couches and the floors. And I mean, just the stories that they were willing to tell on camera only made me think, what went on there with the stories that they wouldn't want to tell on camera?
And it was a bad time, man. I mean, because, you know, I just got married, mind you. Just got married. And,
during this Memphis time?
Before.
Just right before?
Right before.
Okay.
So my wife comes to Memphis with me, and, you know, you know, I didn't party or anything at the time. I didn't even drink alcohol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and, you know, so we're just, you know, doing these rides, trying to have fun and not to crack, like go nuts. And, you know, it was interesting, but we were sometimes like, she would be like, oh, I'm not hungry. You know, I'll just get a baked potato, and, you know, I know she'd be starving. She just wouldn't sell it, because the money that I was getting from Vince was to pay for the house back home, the car, you know, the bills over there. So we were really living on bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
In Memphis. And we had a rental car down there.
Yeah.
And we're paying for a place down there, all out of pocket. So you're really running two households.
Right.
On not a lot of money. So it was definitely interesting.
I'm sure that stipend, you know, from WWE wasn't gigantic. No. You know, maybe, like you said, maybe enough to get through.
It would have been enough to get through comfortably if that was just for Memphis.
Right. Yeah, right.
per week.
If you didn't have Connecticut back at home, right.
Exactly.
Wow, that's tough. All right, wrestling fans, before we go to the break, any final thoughts about Memphis? Even though it wasn't a lucrative experience, do you look back at it fondly, positively? But how about this? Maybe the best experience you had, and maybe the worst experience?
Probably the worst experience.
No. I mean, while you were there, what was the worst thing about Memphis?
Just the worst thing about it.
Thing?
The best thing about it was honestly just spending that time with my wife, and it has nothing to do with wrestling. Yeah, and I thought about this a lot because we still talk about it once in a while. We really got to early in the marriage. You still with the
same wife now?
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yep,
that's
been married 20 plus years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We learned a lot about each other and what we were willing to kind of sacrifice.
And she sacrificed going down there.
Yeah, she certainly did. And you know, and at the end of the day, though, it helped create a character inside. You know, we really, you know, and I feel like I paid my dues. Well, I mean, that's one thing. Is sometimes I think veterans to younger guys may act like we know everything, and you know, and we look smarter than thou and almost cocky. But there's reasons why we sometimes, because if we've been through those territories and come up through those times, everyone has that story of really having to sacrifice and pay dues, both financially, physically, mentally. We don't talk about mental health ever, but mental health was a huge problem.
And think about the guys that didn't have the luxury you did of getting that WWE stipend, that were trying to live life off of those $40 payoffs.
You couldn't.
I mean, there must have been hotel rooms with guys, I'm just guessing now, that would have 6 to 8 guys just to try and to get through.
And this was a thing, and I know in this day and age you shouldn't even say it, but back then, the only way to survive in Memphis was to get a girlfriend down there, which was a wrestling fan.
He said he needed him and Mustafa.
If there was
were
a young
always on the
lady
look for
down
rats
there
that
were fans of the boys, you would hook up with one of them and you know, sleep at their home, and you know, they'd drive you around and feed you, because you couldn't. $40 a night, I can't get a pack of smokes and a value meal, you know.
Wow.
So yeah.
It's amazing that it survived as long as it did.
It is.
That territory.
And everybody made it wasn't just me. It was the Steve Austins. It was the Undertakers. It was, you know, can of tuna, man. That's what you're eating for the day. A lot of that going around.
Well, isn't it nice, though, no pun intended, that your wife gained so much, quote unquote, credibility by being with you, that she was willing to sacrifice so much to be with you down there.
Yeah,
that says a lot about her, too.
It really
she
does.
sounds like a nice lady.
She is. God bless her.
And the worst thing, I guess, is going to be the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so wrestling fans, we learned a little bit more about the ECW, just incredible. WWE, WWF, I should say at that point. Vince McMahon had an idea. Let's try and repackage him. Let's get rid of that Aldo Montoya, Portuguese man of war look. And then ECW said, you know what? He might be a great fit for Finley. Not Finley. He might be a great fit for Philly. Right. We'll hear more about that after this brief timeout. Wrestling fans, VIP packages and tickets are on sale now for Boston Wrestling MWF's Back to the 80s live event and Legends Fanfest, Saturday, April the 16th at Memorial Hall in Melrose, Massachusetts. See and meet WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, three-time WWE Tag Team Champions Axe and Smash Demolition, WWE Hall of Famers Tito, Santana, and Cowboy Bob Orton, the Wild Berzerker, the indestructible Warlord, Dangerous Danny Davis, and if you great fans step up and get those VIP packages and tickets now, we'll add more 80s WWF legends. VIPs take part in exclusive Q&A sessions and an 80s Legends group photo before doors open to all fans for an autograph photo fan fest and a night of hot in-ring action for memories that'll last a lifetime while helping our friends from Make-A-Wish. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's the wrestling celebration, decades in the making. Lock in the best seats in the party now at bostonwrestling.com. We'll see you live April 16th. Wrestling fans, I'm Dan Marotti.
And this is the man of the hour, Leo Rush.
It's all over bostonwrestling.com and our social media. But Leo, brother, they got to check out some of this merch.
They got to.
Check it out, fans, right now, available on eBay. On October 28th, 2020, wrestling's scariest night was back with WWE NXT Halloween Havoc. This limited edition collector's autograph poster is number 12 of only 100 produced and is signed by all 9 superstars featured on the poster, including Johnny Gargano, Damian Priest, Candice LeRae, Io Shirai, Dexter Lumis, Cameron Grimes, Rhea Ripley, Raquel Gonzalez, and your Halloween Havoc host, Shotzi Blackheart. Comes with WWE authentication hologram on the back. You'll also receive an on-air thank you from WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas and a bonus mystery autograph photo. Help keep wrestling legends working. Get this awesome collectible now.
It hits different live as the road to WrestleMania comes through State College with the head of the table, Roman Reigns. And a new challenger has emerged to dethrone the Queen.
Face me and put your title on the line.
As Naomi battles Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's the WWE Road to WrestleMania Tour, live in State College, March 26th. Tickets and Superstar Experience packages on sale now.
All right, wrestling fans, welcome back as we continue with Wrestling Inside Its Extreme. I love this new series. Everybody's talking about it. Our new Tuesday night tradition after NXT goes off the air. NXT has those strange new colors now. You know, they took the gold and black from us. We had that since 2001. But you know what? They've been good friends to us, so no offense, no offense. Yeah, I don't. The new colors, though. I don't know if you've seen the new NXT logo.
I have. It's
what?
a little different, you know. I don't know.
That's being generous.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, only time will tell.
Time will tell, exactly. It could turn into, as I sit here laughing at it, maybe one of the great ideas they have this year. Who knows? We have to wait and see how it plays out.
That's it.
As far as how it played out, though, okay, the end of the 6 weeks come. You said Paul Heyman went to Vince McMahon specifically to request you.
Yes.
Now, that must have been a hell of a Barry Horowitz pat on the back to yourself. That must have made you feel pretty good that you were wanted by one of the top promotions in the country.
I mean, Chris Candido certainly helped, you know, and we'd had that wonderful experience in WWE together. So, you know, that's really what did it, you know, and we'd had fantastic matches. So, you know, and Paul was looking. Paul was, you know, really looking, I think, for new guys coming in, especially with, you know, I think they'd had one pay-per-view already prior. So he was looking, that was the first one. Right,
they did two. They did Barely Legal, and then the second one was it Heat Wave 97?
November, remember.
I think that was your first pay-per-view.
Yes, that was the second one ever.
Oh, no, there was, Barely Legal was the first in April of 97, and then I think there was one in August, Heat Wave?
No, that
or
was
Hardcore
98.
Heaven?
That was 98.
No, I know there was it was horrible. I think it was in Fort Lauderdale, and it had horrible lights, and they let Jake come in, and they let Sonny come in, and
in that Tampa one with Jake as a special guest. Like it came
They
in
did a
last-
million, I can't remember who it was. It was Tommy Dreamer, and they did a million run-ins. They had Sonny, they had Jake. I think Jerry Lawler was involved in some capacity.
Yeah.
What are you Googling? You cheating?
Yeah.
You cheating? I'm pretty sure, I would bet you $10, and it's on video. It's on video. I'll bet you $10 that there was a pay-per-view in between Barely Legal and November to Remember in '97.
All right, let's see.
Let's see. Fans at home, play along. We'll play the Jeopardy song, even though there's unfortunately no more Alex Trebek. Who, for you historians out there, made a special appearance at WrestleMania 7 in Los Angeles?
I was correct.
There was no pay-per-view between...
They had a big show as far as, like, the named shows, but as far as pay-per-view, it was November to Remember.
Now, I'm going to give you the $10, but I still...
Look,
I don't want to interrupt the show and look, but I'm still...
100%, yes.
You know when we'll find out? Because the day we're taping this, we're going to be doing our live cyber signing. All of those fans will be all over Google if we throw that challenge at them. But anyway, yeah, it was.
97?
That was not a pay-per-view?
Yeah, I don't think it was.
Hold
on, now you're going to kill me.
We're talking big $10 now.
All right, I don't know.
In Massachusetts, that's almost a pack of smokes.
Here's what it says.
What's it
says
say?
November to Remember, Hardcore Heaven, and Barely Legal.
Yeah, Hardcore Heaven was August.
But then November to Remember?
So that would have been the third one.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Because that was Mikey's first match. My first pay-per-view match was against Mikey.
Yeah, I believe
and
that.
I'd already debuted.
And we're going to get there. I think that was November of '97. But when you debuted in August of '97 with ECW,
right?
And you were using that same USWA name, or was it USWA
no, I
when you were
started
there?
with the Justin gimmick at that time.
No, you did a couple of PG 187s.
You sure?
Yeah.
Huh.
I put a lot of research into this, my friend.
I think that's what Wikipedia has, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think it was only like
maybe
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, you know what, let me see.
It was against Jerry Lynn, my first appearance on TV.
You did a job to Chris Candido your first night in Queens.
In
As
Queens.
PG 187.
That was Aldo. I had the Aldo gear and threw out the mask into the crowd.
And then you became PG 187?
The next day in Philadelphia.
Well, the notes could be wrong. But how about this? Simply, we have, maybe we have a couple of the specifics wrong, but take us back to that great date for you, August 21st, 1997, Queens, which turned into a hell of a venue for ECW, and you're in there with another guy that was given a shit gimmick by WWF, a guy that could really, really, really go. If he came along in this era, imagine what Chris Candido would be doing in his prime, would be doing in 2021. But your memories of your first night in Queens with that rabid crowd,
scary.
I'm sure they knew even before who was coming out. These are the Meltzer and the Keller guys that are watching you.
It was very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary because I didn't know what to expect from ECW and the crowds. And the whole shtick was I came in with the mask and the Aldo gear. And Heyman wanted me to cut a promo and say, I blasted all of the WWE and the gimmick, and then I took the mask on, threw it out there, and put on an ECF&W shirt and said, I'm here to, I'm ECW now. And so I had the match with Chris, which was a decent match. The crowd was on me hot and making fun of the gimmick. But the match itself was good, and and I think he won that night. I put him over. And but it was I remember being very intimidated. Yeah. Very intimidated because it was so different. And the crowds were just so vocal and whew, it was just something different, and especially when you. It
wasn't a WWF atmosphere.
No, and when you're used to playing big arenas.
Yeah.
And now they're just so
on top of you.
Which come to appreciate. I prefer much more now that I'm familiar with the crowds and stuff being that close. But when you're coming from the world of the WWE, so far away, and it was like, wow, this is just bizarre.
You like that hot, intimate crowd right on you.
Yes, but at that moment I was scared to death.
A couple of weeks after Queens, right down the street, again, it was the home of our first live event in 2001, but you worked Wonderland Greyhound Park, Revere, Massachusetts, the home of the coolest incident, and you went over on Jerry Lynn, but that night you were PJ Walker.
Was I?
Yeah, you were PJ.
So that is, wow, I guess my memory does not serve me well.
Well,
So,
you
I
said
guess
you had a concussion or several, so.
Yeah.
That's
I
certainly-
always thought that for some reason, obviously not because that makes more sense. I don't remember where the Just Incredible came in. I'd like to find out actually.
Well,
where the actual what day episode did I debut with that name?
We're going to go there in about 5, 4.
I didn't know you had the information.
3, 2. September 20th, 1997, the day before my birthday. They didn't invite me down. It was As Good as It Gets at the ECW Arena. And Jason introduced you.
And that's the night I wrestled Jerry Lynn again in ECW.
Was it
Arena?
Yes, you did, as a matter of fact.
Maybe
and that's when they renamed you Just Incredible.
Okay. I remember Queens with Aldo, being Aldo and wrestling Candido, but for some reason in my mind, I thought it went Friday from Queens to As Good as It Gets. Like the rest.
You were about a month off, but that's all right.
Yeah, but that whole month was a blur in my recollection.
Because I can't imagine. Like you said, you were going from the Baltimore Arena to MSG to Los Angeles Arena, and now you're in Queens and you're in Plymouth Meeting and
some great buildings. Though,
absolutely. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying.
As a matter of fact, I got hired right up the road here for the WWE with Vince McMahon offered me my job. What was that?
Lowell,
Massachusetts.
Lowell Memorial Auditorium.
Yeah.
What a beautiful venue.
And he first of all, I was PJ Walker still, and just real quick, it's a hell of a story. And you know how they have all the American flags. And stuff, and they're lit up. And this is during the Raw taping. It's nighttime, and Vince takes me outside to talk. And it's like,
during the taping?
Yeah.
Wow.
He walks me outside.
That's very impressive.
And we're sitting there talking, and he goes, PJ, like what you've done, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, the WWE, or WWF, he said back then, it was WWF, we're considered the land of opportunity, much like the American flag. That he gives the whole land of opportunity shtick as he's pointing out the flag. He goes, PJ, we at the WWF, we're going to give you an opportunity. Would you like to take this opportunity? I'm like, what do you think, Vince? But he did that whole spiel of making you look up, and that was right up here at Lowell.
Really?
Never forget that. Yeah.
What
scary too, to have the old man it felt like a mafia.
You and him alone outside
felt like a mafia.
while the TV taping was going on. Yeah. We expected someone to come up from one of the production trucks from behind and put an end to you.
That's what the difference was back then.
Where that could happen.
Well, yeah. but no, so the younger guys and gals don't have the opportunity for the one-on-ones that we had. And I know
it's so big now.
It's a different business, but this was pre-steroid trial and all that, and it was just it was cool though. It was great to have that,
I never knew that the opportunity that you got as Aldo came beginning here in Lowell.
Yep.
Again, for whatever reason, other than Madison Square Garden, I love to see a wrestling event in that venue. NXT has had, and I know we mentioned, I think it was on one of the previous episodes, you don't go and pay for a ticket and whatnot. WWE is very gracious in having us as their guests, but some of the NXT house shows they've had at Lowell Memorial Auditorium the past few years are just, from top to bottom, just outstanding. And you can talk about size.
The auditorium, huh?
NXT does, yeah. Oh, Captain Lou is laying the law down.
Did it fall off?
I don't know.
I believe it did.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess that's why.
Oh, yeah, it's right by my leg. This thing keeps going off, and I don't know why, because it's off. It's on buzz. Fucking viruses, that's what it's going off on.
I'm telling you, where are we in this segment, Captain Lou, since you're out here? This is about it. You know what? You could have given us the signal a little early. Oh, all right. Well, again, I'll praise the Lowell Memorial Auditorium as you make your way back to the booth.
Thank you, Justin.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right. You should see where the microphones wind up sometimes. The Sheiks have wound up in other parts, across the room at different times. But I look forward to, after we go through the ECW series, obviously there's a great WWF chronological life for you for us to talk about. But that's down the road. We're Tuesday nights. We're Extreme, baby. So as good as it gets, yeah. So you go over on Jerry Lynn, you're introduced as this new character. What do you think the first time you hear Just Incredible? I thought it was a really cool name, but...
I thought it was a bit too much. match.
Did you?
I did, and now I didn't, because I didn't see what Heyman saw. Right, I was a bit nervous because everybody seemed so cool, you know, and just incredible. Almost seemed very, very cartoonish, and I just came from a cartoon gimmick.
You didn't want cartoon.
No, I wanted it, you know, just to be as realistic as, you know, because I thought everybody else was being so authentic and so realistic. So I was scared. I didn't say anything, of course. You know, I'm not going to go against the great Paul Heyman. You know, no pun. I'm not being funny. I'm being serious.
Sure,
like, you know, he came up with some great ideas. So I didn't want to rattle anything. So I just took it, and as I saw, it started to become more and more natural. But Paul, what Paul had in mind really wasn't where it ended up going, because he intended the Just Incredible gimmick to catch on with the fans, but what he had intended was like fans to be chanting just an arm drag or just a headlock, like stupid stuff like that. He was trying to get a chant out of it, and I kind of didn't want to go there. So in a way, I just tried to.
It's good that it didn't.
Yeah. I tried to kind of navigate away from the silliness. He wanted to make it a chant to go with the character, and I saw it as a little more serious.
I don't ever remember a chant catching on though.
It didn't. You know, the only one that did was the Just an Asshole.
That's all right. That fits.
But he was headed towards one of the bunch of those, and me playing off of them.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad it didn't.
Like you were Bobby Heenan being called Weasel or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Now, to me, as someone watching it, I thought, wow, a name like that, that's a guy that's going to get a main event push.
Yeah.
But granted, I enjoyed your work as Aldo to begin with, so maybe I was just hoping that's what it was going to be. But as I watched it, just as someone that tuned in at, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning on the Spanish channel here in Massachusetts. I thought it was a gimmick that was going to get a good push when I first saw it.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think about having someone like Jason as a manager? When you look back at the great managers of pro wrestling, I don't know what you think of him personally, but as far as professionally, not someone looked back at as one of the great managers in the history of pro wrestling.
No.
Someone that really didn't add much at all, other than the fact that he had a physical presence. He wasn't verbally.
Yeah. I was very, very displeased, but I didn't show anything towards it. I just figured do what anybody else in that position would have done, and that's just kind of no-sell him as much as possible. Like not to be a jerk, but kind of like if you almost make him irrelevant.
Right.
Paul could bring him out, put him out there with me. I'm not going to play to him.
You're not going to sell him.
Yep. Right. But then eventually some stuff started to happen, and I understood that even though he wasn't getting heat for me or he was a great asset to take chair shots and cane shots that I did not want to take.
Well, then there's that.
As a heel, I could use that.
Yeah.
So then I started
and it's a great thing to build for more matches out of that, because at first you get the manager, but you didn't get the heel, you didn't get the villain, you didn't get the antagonist, and you can continue a chase out of that.
And then I warmed up to him a bit more, and I started to understand more of where this could go. And the later incarnations of Jason and I was quite happy with. When we did the Impact Players with Dawn Marie and so forth. But yeah, it was a bit weird at first. It was kind of almost like very unlikely to even work. Like, what's the reason that this works? It was very, and come to find out, him and Paulie were like best friends for very long time.
So they were close?
Very close, yeah.
Well, that maybe explains why he was around so long.
Yeah.
To me, other than maybe what you just said, I didn't think there was much there compared to some of the great managers that you'd seen in WWF and so on and so forth. Yeah, and that's just one man's opinion.
Yeah, and you're right. And they also had the city connection. Jason and Paul knew each other from both being city guys, New York City guys, and Jason did a lot of stuff with the WWF as a jobber.
I remember that, yeah.
And Jason had a good body, a good physique, and a lot of guys in ECW, they were few and far between, because Jason, if you remember, was a former television champion in the early days.
In the early
So Paul kind of liked him for the silliness of the sexiest man. So, we made it work as best we could.
Well, it was good that, that you see some loyalty and he kept him around.
Yeah.
Maybe even if he wasn't the best at what the position entailed. What were your thoughts on your theme song? Where'd that go? Was it something you picked? Did they pick it?
Paul picked.
He picked it?
Yeah, that was all him. which I give him credit. Paul was very good at kind of getting a feel for music and the vibe of ECW, because all those songs that kind of came out of that generation and those videos, those montage videos and clips, I mean, that was some great stuff. He had all kinds of classic, Alice in Chains to, whatever was out there. I mean, just on top of it. Soundgarden,
Yeah.
Al,
the song that Al used, I thought was perfect for him. When he was doing the head. What the hell was that?
Oh,
was it Fire?
Firestarter.
Boom. I just thought that fit what he was doing at that time perfectly. But it's unfortunate now that when you try and go back and at least through WWE Network,
right,
everything is dubbed over with the music.
Which is such a shame, because that's what really made
it added to the atmosphere.
Yeah,
added to the atmosphere.
When you watch a New Jack match back, and you watch the stuff, it's a shame.
Yeah.
To really get the full feeling of it, you have to get the old videos from like RF
or YouTube or something like that.
It's a shame.
Yeah. What was your first thought pulling up to that ECW arena? I mean, I'm sure you heard stories about it.
I had been there before.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not as a wrestler. Well, I was already a wrestler, but a friend of mine who was from Detroit, John Pee Wee Moore, Little Pee Wee, the referee.
The referee. Yeah.
We were pen pals somehow. Like, we knew Scott D'Amore, like that kid Brett Farrell that went to Calgary with me. Long story short, he knew Pee Wee and Scott D'Amore were friends. So through Scott D'Amore, who I became pen pals with or whatever, called him up once in a while, we were all trying to get booked. That's how it worked. Pee Wee got a hold of me, and he decided to come all the way from Detroit to pick me up in Waterbury, Connecticut, driving, to go to an ECW arena show.
Wow.
When Sal Balomo was there,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was like
That you're
Eastern.
really
It was
going back.
Eastern
Championship Wrestling?
Yeah,
Wow.
and they were already like, I think Sabu was starting to go there, and Pee Wee knew Sabu, so it was just kind of a way to meet some people there, and I didn't know anybody.
So you weren't even with WWF at this point?
No, this was
just maybe doing jobs.
This was pre-WWF. Yeah, maybe doing some jobs and stuff. Yeah, I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
So
that's a cool story.
Early on, yeah. Never introduced myself. Nothing. Just kind of stayed in the shadows and very shy. Yeah.
I remember even in those old, a name that we tossed out in one of the episodes, Tony Rumble actually did a color commentary way back. I think it was December of '93. He was going down and doing the color commentary for a few episodes. Yeah.
Oh, wow,
but for whatever reason, they decided to go the route of the one-man show, and I think that worked.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think sometimes less is more. I mean, right now, even on the new AEW show that's 1 hour long, they have 4 commentators, and it's like, how do you talk?
Yeah, that's a bit much. Yeah.
If it was a 2-hour show, 3-hour show, I could understand it a little more. But 4 people in a booth for a 1 hour show,
way too much.
But anyway, I think there's a lot of commentary woes in wrestling right now. But that's a different story for a different time. Yeah. I still think that when you tune into that wrestling show, and again, this just has nothing to do with what I even wrote, but I think when you watch that wrestling show, the person providing the soundtrack, it's almost like your friend that you're sitting there watching it with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And if it's someone that you don't like or don't want to listen to, or it doesn't sound like they know what they're talking about, like I always do, but to knock poor Michael Cole, I think he's great at voiceovers.
Yeah.
I think he's great when they do interviews like this back and forth. But as far as him trying to get over wrestlers, angles, moves, matches, storylines, pay-per-views, to think that anyone in that company thought Jim Ross was not superior to Michael Cole is insanity to me.
It is.
Because, again, I'm not trying to knock. He's a nice enough guy from when I've met him. But as far as what he does as a commentator, I don't think it's for him.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because since Jim Ross being gone, I don't think they've found really a good voice. Like, I miss the days of, I loved Monsoon. Monsoon and Heenan. Even when Vince was great. I used to get a kick out of hearing Vince commentate my matches. That was ridiculous. It was so cool, and he was always so. I mean, even he just had that weird way of that white meat baby face commentating, But yeah, I think commentating, like you said, it should be that welcoming, familiar voice that kind of brings you in.
It's a friend.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you watch a Raw, but I think the newer guy they have that came from, I think, Bellator, I think he has potential. He's not too bad.
Oh, yeah,
I think his name's Jimmy Phillips, but yeah, I guess he was a fan of wrestling at one point.
Okay.
He was supposedly, I'm not much of a MMA guy, but with Bellator, supposedly he was very good. So, knock on wood, they found someone that can bring some life back to the commentary. And I'll tell you this, I believe that hurts the ratings. If you don't want to listen to what the soundtrack is, imagine listening to a radio channel with music you don't want to listen to for 3 hours. You wouldn't do it.
Sometimes also, it's not what you say, it's when you say it. And that CM Punk debut for Rampage, they brought in Jim Ross for a reason. Just the way he didn't say anything during the music and before, he waited. He waited 60 seconds before he said anything. And I don't know if a Michael Cole would have done the same or whatever. Sometimes
he would have been doing that orgasm scream that he has. Ladies and gentlemen, it's CM Punk.
Sometimes it's just better to let it happen. And that's what he did. And not everybody can do that or knows.
I don't know if you're a Red Sox fan by any chance, but they've run into the same problem. They had a guy named Don Orsillo that was with the Red Sox doing the play-by-play for, over a decade. And then they had a guy that was from ESPN Radio that they thought would be such a great addition. Yeah. And all he does is sit there and read these boring, repetitive stats that don't even apply to what is going on in the game. It's almost like there's a Vince in his headset. Okay, tell the fans that he bats .316 on night games on Thursday after the 7th inning. And it's like, who gives a fuck? Right. The guy, Jerry Remy, who's kind of a local legend, him and Don Orsillo were just a magical team together in this pundit's opinion. But unfortunately, fans, we are running out of time. Much like the live event we were talking about, this is as good as it gets. It's Wrestling Insiders Extreme every Tuesday night after WWE NXT. The good news is, even though we got to go now, he is going to be back with us next Tuesday night. We thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching during the live premiere, send us your thoughts. Share your thoughts. The Super Chat is open. Again, that helps us keep the lights on. If you're not watching us live, again, I tell you, I may come to the house, even though I got the cane. But leave your comments in the comment section below. If you had fun, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. Let's keep growing what we're doing so we can give more wrestling greats the opportunity to come to this studio, share their stories with you, their experiences, and keep wrestling legends working. I know Marty gets offended sometimes when I use that phrase. He goes, I don't want people thinking I'm destitute or whatnot. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you're not under a full-time WWE contract or a full-time AEW contract, most likely you could be in a better financial position.
Could use the word.
There you go. All right, for our new partner in crime, Just Incredible, I'm Dan Morati. We'll see you next Tuesday night at 10 o'clock. Be healthy, be well. Good night from Boston.
Wrestling fans, spring kicks off with the in-studio return of the Berzerker, John Nord, Thursday, April the 14th, to kick off Back to the 80s live wrestling in Legends Fanfest weekend. The Berzerker returns for Wrestling Insider Throwback Thursday tapings, live episodes, a cyber autograph signing, and more. Check out Boston Wrestling's exclusive print that the Berzerker will sign to you live on the air. The big man kicks off 3 big days of action, excitement, and memories. Head on over to bostonwrestling.com for complete information.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Morati.
And I'm John Cena Sr.
Johnny, the momentum here in Boston Wrestling continues as we continue to build and build and build. The fans want to know, how do we help? We subscribe to the Patreon, but we see all the great merchandise on that set. Coronavirus may have killed the nightlife, especially for someone like Marty, but our acclaimed eBay store is open 24/7 around the world.
Wow. Check it out.
As the Demon, he became the first WWE Universal Champion at SummerSlam 2016. Here's your chance to own this limited edition collector's autographed art print, personally signed by Finn Balor, one of only 50 made, direct from our friends at WWE. Also signed by original artist Rob Schamberger. Help keep wrestling legends working. Get this awesome collectible for your wrestling collection now.
All right, wrestling fans, welcome to another Wrestling Insiders Extreme. Hope you enjoyed NXT tonight in whatever version it was presented in. I'm very happy to be joined by the latest member of the family, Mr. Justin Credible himself. Some of the episodes we've produced already, I think, are incredible. Great stories, well-spoken. I don't want to put you over too much. But, then everybody's going to want you. Be hard to get. They'll all take you.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. This has been a fantastic experience. Thank you for having me back.
Well, we want to have you on a regular basis. As
It'd be my honor.
Hopefully, before you go today, we can figure something out. But anyway, back to As Good As It Gets. It was a hot night in ECW. I know that building could be quite hot in the summertime.
Oh, yeah. It's an understatement.
If fans maybe didn't tune in last time, As Good As It Gets, September 20th, 1997, it was your official debut as Justin Credible, with Jason as your manager, I guess maybe to give you a little credibility right away.
Yeah.
It was your second experience, but your first time as a wrestler at the arena. One thing that went on that night, I don't know, maybe where you knew how much you knew about the story, was the absolute brutal, bloody beating that Bill Alfonso took from Beulah that night, where apparently, I don't remember if it was Paul Heyman, but I was told someone within the hierarchy of ECW was able to tap into Fonzie's voicemails and heard his exchanges with WCW officials. And Beulah beat the ever-living fuck out of him in one of the great bloodbaths of the 90s, if you like blood.
I remember that night.
Was, I'm guessing my buddy over there, Phil, saw it.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
And it saved his job. Because he was, from what I was told, he was supposed to be done after that. But he did so well.
I never heard that part. That's funny.
No? Oh, really?
I never heard that part, but I'm sure now that makes more sense, and I'll tell you why. This was Bill Alfonso's first time really doing that, where he got color for AK blading for Beulah McGillicuddy, and he used a box cutter. And
who do you think he was? New Jack?
All I know is that's not something you would want to do.
No!
And in trying to do a good job to put Beulah over and make her look like $1 million, he went a bit too far. So that's, I guess, the point
that's
of
an understatement.
So yeah, I give all the hats off to her, because I saw her in the ring. She was struggling to continue with so much blood, and we almost lost Bill Alfonso that day. Because if he'd have lost a little, if he lost a lot more or any more blood, it would have been, He had to stay for a while in the hospital, I believe.
I was just going to ask you, did he need medical attention?
He needed to get more blood.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that wasn't the intention for sure.
The personification of ECW was that beating that he took from, a very slight, beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Beating the shit out of him with the trash can.
Yeah, I'll never forget it.
That was, to me, the highlight of the night. Nothing against you and your debut.
None whatsoever.
I mean, that's just what a memorable ECW moment. You still remember it yourself. So.
Yeah, I remember where I was high up in the Eagle's Nest watching it, and there was just a calm but a friend's. It was weird. It was the weirdest thing, because fans knew they were watching something special, and they were like, there was a rumbling going on, and they would react to the moves and whatever, but there was still like a caution, like, oh shit, like, did this go too far? It was weird.
Did you think to yourself at that point, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit, but.
Beulah can Rana, there you go. But I tell you this, as a teenage Dan Marati, what a beautiful woman Beulah was.
Very beautiful, yeah.
Oh, and even I've seen photos of her in this day.
Yeah.
Tommy Dreamer married well.
He certainly did. Lovely young lady.
He's a good guy.
Yes, he is.
Early on your ECW run, you mentioned, we talked about it earlier. What were your memories of your early matches with Jerry Lynn? I mean, you talk about maybe one of the most underrated, quote-unquote, workers of this generation.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing spectacular about him, nothing with, quote-unquote, superstar appeal. But when that bell rang until that bell rang at the end of the match, you're talking about outstanding.
I mean, he was the personification of professional, as talented as they come. Somebody like Jerry Lynn could wrestle anybody, and if you have just a little bit of talent, he will make that talent look even greater and better. You could tell even the matches he had early on with X-Pac, Sean
Up
Waltman.
in Minnesota.
Up in
Yeah, those
Minnesota.
indie shows. Yeah,
that got
yeah.
him into Global, which was a small Texas organization, Global Wrestling.
Yeah, Bill Eadie helped with that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he could go, man. He could really go, and I was blessed to work with Jerry because he just made your life easy. I don't think I'd ever worked with anybody, and I was in the WWF prior. I don't think I had ever worked with anybody that was that good all the time. And that's saying a lot, because I was in there.
You were with some of the elite talents in the world in WWF.
Yeah.
Maybe not as far as spectacular moves, so to speak, but as far as working goes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you learned a lot from Jerry Lynn, huh?
I learned that, this is interesting, even though I was in the WWF, I learned that I could wrestle a guy that has the similar ideas that I do, that I could have the matches I wanted to have. Because in the WWF, you were very much restrained to a certain style, and you don't want to do too much to upset the main eventers. You got to kind of know your position on the card and know your role, really. And working with Jerry, it's like the light bulb went out. It's like I could really go out there with this guy, trust him with my body, and have the matches I've always thought I could have, know I could have, with somebody that is quite similar and wants to have the same kinds of matches. So it was really refreshing and awesome.
And it was a feud in some ways that went on almost until the end of ECW.
Very much so.
You guys
Absolutely.
always seemed to reconnect in some way, shape, or form, and the matches were always great. Night off?
No, not a night off, but not for, not that they were painful or anything like that, or risky for that matter, I'll even say. But you knew you were going to put in a performance.
He kept on your toes.
That, and you just, the risks we would voluntarily take, and the cardiovascular, and the amount of time we would put in was extreme, no pun intended. So yeah, it was, but it was a night off because you knew at the end of the day you were going to be safe and you were going to walk out of there as you came in, which is what every wrestler is supposed to do. So.
Do you think if Jerry Lynn in 2021 was at his peak, he would have become a much bigger star than he is?
Oh,
than
absolutely.
He was due to the style
Absolutely.
that is much more popular now?
Absolutely, without a doubt. He was
too early.
He was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
WWE had him even after ECW.
And what did they do with him?
And he was there for a cup of coffee, and he won the light heavyweight title that they had for a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
So shame is on, they lost, really.
Right, exactly. You talk about WWE's loss. I think it was a Sunday Night Heat match that I talked to different people in the office about different things with live events still to this day. But I guess he had a match for Sunday Night Heat with Rob Van Dam.
Yes.
And they let them go about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yep.
And by the time it made it to TV, it was about 4 minutes.
Right.
So, you took something great away from the fans just because they didn't want to push Jerry Lynn, which was sad.
Yeah, and I don't think Vince McMahon at the time, or quite frankly, even still today, has to him, the vision is not the product in the ring. It's the storylines and angles moving forward. And I think for a long time now, I think it's been almost 20 years that he's missed out on what the fans truly want to see. And that's a combination. They want to see the characters, don't get me wrong, and the storylines, but they also want to see that battle in the ring. Wrestling as an art form is really, I think the WWE in general, that's an underappreciated art form in their eyes. Even though the wrestling the guys that are there, the legends that are backstage will tell you, that's not the case. But I think it's a bunch of political BS. I think very much what they do in the ring is underappreciated, where the fans, believe it or not, want to see that more now than ever before.
It's like Rocky, it's like Creed, that's what they're tuning in for. I think, I don't want to go off on a completely different road, but the comedy to me is a killer.
Yeah.
I think it takes away from the credibility of the talent. I think most fans, when they tune in, and I think that's why ECW was so beloved, there could be serious, dangerous people that would do humorous things from time to time.
Right.
But unless it's someone with very little talent in an undercard role, I don't think you should have the ha-ha guys around.
No.
I think it kills the credibility of everything that the serious guys are trying to do.
It does. And
One man's opinion.
And what it does too is it just really goes to show you how bad they are at writing comedy. And quite frankly, if we wanted comedy, we would watch comedy.
You wouldn't watch pro wrestling, right?
And wrestling stopped being funny since the days of Bobby Heenan, which is a shame. But that's partially because they've never pushed anybody like that.
Yeah.
A, there's nobody like Bobby Heenan.
Right.
But two, there's nobody's come along doing that because nobody valued it. So all of a sudden they want to create skits that are funny, and all you get is guys trying their best to be funny, which usually are channel changers.
And it's usually the best laugh you're going to get out of something is something that comes organically.
Right.
Something that they're not scripted, that just, whether it's something you're just feeling in the ring with the fans or feeling with your opponent. Steve Austin could do things that were funny.
Oh, yeah.
And he was kick-ass, badass, Stone Cold Steve Austin. But when you see these top guys they present as idiots, they have no credibility.
But again,
no pun intended.
But again, the way you got there with guys like Mick Foley, guys like Steve Austin and The Rock, were unscripted, off the cuff kind of improvisational moments that you cannot have in a can. These are moments that just happen that you can't plan for.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's not. Listen, WWE, we always, the people the pros that write the sheets and the newsletters and the websites, fans are fed up with the WWE, and I think so much so that everybody's just worried about their jobs. So they're writing for Vince McMahon, not writing for the masses. And if they say they are, they're lying.
Instead of millions.
And if you're Vince McMahon, you're saying, well, my profits are at an all-time high. You know what I mean? The bottom line is at an all-time high. He's not worried about it.
But at the same time, and again, not to turn this too much into and I hate to come across negative to WWE where they're so good to me, but you look at every other metric before coronavirus, live attendance in the toilet.
Yeah.
House shows canceled regularly.
Yep.
Third-party licensees, down. WWE official merchandising, down. WWE Network subscriptions in the United States, down. Was that segment 2, Captain Lou?
This is 3, right?
That's it?
This is 3, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Right? We had 2 before this, and then...
Well, I thought we just started this episode.
Pretty sure this is 3.
I'm not sure.
Phil, we might need you, brother.
Segment 3, yes.
This is the 3rd segment? We talked that long?
I'm surprised. I'm surprised, but when it's fun and it's great and it's great.
Well, that does happen from time to time, but let me just, I remember I looked at my watch not too long. You know what? Yeah, it does kind of fit. Captain Lou, again, I'm sorry, I challenged your intelligence as one of the lead stars of the Goonies as Data. All right, well, geez, that sucks, because I thought we were having a really good conversation. Right. But to wrap it up real quick,
yes.
To me, and I think I have a little credibility because I was there at the time with Ed Cohen doing his Virgil work. To me, I think WWE, for a lot of the fans, it died and never came back when the bell rang at the end of WrestleMania 17 when they turned Austin heel.
Yeah.
Then they did the WCW invasion, which was a disaster, which led to me going bye-bye. Maybe that's why I resent it so much. The ECW invasion was a disaster, and then something that could still, if done right, could probably still be ongoing now in 2021 if they ever spent the money to bring in the top WCW talent and have that real WWF versus WCW war.
Yeah. Do you know I was in 3 of those things you mentioned? I was at WrestleMania 17. I was part of the...
Oh, you worked the dark match, or the pre-show, yeah?
Yeah, I was part of the invasion angle, and was something else you just mentioned. I was part of, maybe I was the problem in all of
Nah, it had nothing, believe me, it had nothing to do with you. But I mean, other than that one little blip when they went with the year with JBL and Triple H as heel champions, and then they went with Batista and Cena at WrestleMania 21, because I went with Sheiky Baby to go into the Hall of Fame for that. They had that one little blip where business went up a little bit for a tad, but then kaboom,
2004, 2005,
yeah, and it's just sad because these people that go online and bash WWE, while they do it and they come across as very negative, at the end of the day, they just want to tune into a good wrestling show. That's what in their heart, that's what they're trying to say.
The state of the business is simple, and I know we're short on time, but there's nobody over. That is the reason, and it's not that they don't have talented main eventers. is nobody's over. Like, and Austin has said this in the past, being over and making new stars are two different things. Nobody's over. That's why they bring back the Edges and so many other people, is because this generation never got over. Now, you could say that's on the generation, or if that's on lack of creative, on the office's part, on the writing team, whatever, but nobody's become that next new star. That's the problem.
I think McIntyre turned into a disaster because I was at the Rumble in Houston when they did a magnificent job. I don't know if you ever saw that, when he eliminated Brock Lesnar, and Lesnar literally laid on the floor for minutes selling for him, and McIntyre was just staring at him. And I mean, that was one moment where they had a chance to make a new star, and then the virus happened.
Yeah.
He wound up winning the title in a warehouse. His title defenses were in a warehouse or on what did they call Raw and SmackDown? Thunderdome.
Yeah.
So to me, I would have never taken the belt off of that guy until you had fans again. Well, to gauge, is he someone that can be a star, or is he someone we can really make the face of the company? But as of right now, like you said, I don't think he's over at all. Before we go, the two champions right now, who I think are two credible champions, no pun intended, but I mean, I think Roman and Lashley are two guys, at least they look the part, they work the part.
They
but
do.
Would you consider them over?
I can't stand to look at them.
Really? Why is that?
I feel like I've seen it all done. They've been there, done that. There's nothing intriguing about any of them. Just nothing catches on. And again, Bobby Lashley in his mid to late 40s.
Not a young guy.
A lot of guys are on the wrong side of 40. I'm 47. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you've got to remember the reason nobody, guys, Undertaker went too long, and it's not Undertaker's fault. He's got a special gimmick, but where's that other generation of guys that 10 years, 15 years, no new guys have gotten over? I don't want to hear the brass ring speech, because I know very well what happens when you go for it. It doesn't exist. They do what they want. When something that you do is considered scripted, I could write up a story right now, come into Monday Night Raw and beat up Roman Reigns and come out looking like Superman. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but you got to try somewhere along the lines. You're going to have to try and shake it up. And I couldn't, like SummerSlam. Everybody thought it was so great. And look, I love John Cena. I love Roman Reigns as far as talents, but I just can't stomach to watch any of it. I can't. Bad taste in my mouth.
It's tough. It's sad. And again, it's not that we want to knock WWE.
No, not at all.
We would love to sit back in our recliners or in our sofas at home and tune into a show that we enjoy again.
I do a weekly podcast for Vince Russo's network.
Oh, do you really?
Yes.
Okay.
Me and this gentleman, we do a review show for AEW. Drops on Fridays. And so I watched every episode. I bury it constantly.
You're talking AEW now?
But hear me out.
Okay.
About moves.
I just wanted to make
yes,
sure.
AEW Dynamite. About certain move sets, and this one could do better, or this one. But at the end of the day, I love watching the show, and I prefer it because it seems fresh. It doesn't seem like I don't know. It pops off differently. Something is unique about it. I feel like I'm watching something live. It has a very old Nitro feel when it first started to pop.
Yes, yeah.
And what I've watched from Raw just feels like it could be any episode from the past 15 years.
You could run a rerun.
And I couldn't
no
tell the
one
difference.
would know the difference.
And that's why. And what I'm trying to say is I don't like a lot of the guys, or I'm not really that fond of them. And some of the moves could be better or crisp, or like they could tighten it up.
They could
but
sell.
I still that too. But I enjoy it a lot more as a 2-hour experience. And I can't stomach a 3-hour Raw.
No. I think with AEW, when I watch it, I think you get 2 or 3 really killer segments each week.
Yes.
And then what takes away from it for me is that they throw some guys and girls out there that don't belong on national TV yet.
They bookend the shows very well. They open the shows very well, and they finish them usually very well. And sometimes in between, anything can happen. But nonetheless, though, I still prefer that experience because I still get that feeling that Raw used to give me as anything can happen. And in the WWE, unfortunately, nothing ever does.
It's interesting. Like you said, it's new, it's fresh, it's fun.
Yeah.
It gets fans buzzing. People are actually talking about that.
Yeah.
And 2021, before we go, I'm getting all worked up now. I'm moving. I'll ask your opinion. Is there any other promotion that has momentum in the upward way? I can't see anyone saying that about Ring of Honor. I mean, that barely has a pulse. Impact Wrestling, we don't get it up here, at least where I get my cable, but I'm told it's improved a bit. But, I mean, is there anyone really going out of their way to talk about TNA or wanting to go and see it? WWE is about as flat as it gets, despite their record-making profits that they have. But I mean, other than AEW is the promotion that people are talking and buzzing about.
The last thing I'll say, and I know we got to go, is it's not about the creative. It's also about they know that Raw's not going to do anything. So it's business as usual, and at the end of the day, they're just going to go back to what we always get, and that's the problem.
And that's the sad thing. The one thing I never get is, though, you know, when the fans attack WWE online, if it was me, if I was going to sit there and do that, why not tweet at Fox and USA, who are paying the big money for these shows that they don't like? If anyone is going to encourage WWE to change things, it's going to be the ones that are paying the bills. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But anyway, again, one man's opinion. We're having a lot of fun. We didn't get too far at all in this episode. But for my friend Justin Incredible, I'm Dan Marotti. The good news is we'll be back next Tuesday night with another brand new Wrestling Insiders Extreme. Share the news with your friends. Share the link on social media. If you're chatting away in the premiere box, we appreciate your thoughts on the show. The super chat button is always open for business. If you're not watching the premiere, I still love you, but you're hurting my feelings. You can still leave your thoughts on the show in the comment section below. A big thumbs up, that's free. Subscribing to the channel is free. All of those things help what they call algorithms, or whatever the terminology is, to get YouTube to showcase these great talk shows to all the fans that don't know we.
Wrestling fans, VIP packages and tickets are on sale now for Boston Wrestling MWF's Back to the 80s live event and Legends Fanfest, Saturday, April the 16th at Memorial Hall in Melrose, Massachusetts. See and meet WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, three-time WWE Tag Team Champions Axe and Smash Demolition, WWE Hall of Famers Tito, Santana, and Cowboy Bob Orton, the Wild Berzerker, the indestructible Warlord, Dangerous Danny Davis, and if you great fans step up and get those VIP packages and tickets now, we'll add more 80s WWF legends. VIPs take part in exclusive Q&A sessions and an 80s Legends group photo before doors open to all fans for an autograph photo fan fest and a night of hot in-ring action for memories that'll last a lifetime while helping our friends from Make-A-Wish. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's the wrestling celebration, decades in the making. Lock in the best seats in the party now at bostonwrestling.com. We'll see you live April 16th.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marotti.
And I'm Mr. USA WWE Hall of Famer Tony Atlas.
The road to WrestleMania has begun. Wrestling fans are looking to add to their man caves. You got to see what we have in the eBay store.
Check it out.
Arguably the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Get this limited edition collector's autograph print personally signed by two-time WWE Hall of Famer Nature Boy Ric Flair, inscribed 16 times for each of his recognized World Championship reigns. One of only 50 made direct from our friends at WWE. Also signed by original artist Rob Schamberger. Help keep wrestling legends working. Get this awesome Ric Flair collectible for your wrestling collection now.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, welcome to another installment of Wrestling Insiders Extreme. Dan Marotti, along with our partner in crime, Justin Incredible, as we continue our look at the world that was ECW, the superstars, the places, the people, the events, the ambiance, so much that went into those magical years that so many millions of fans still miss, even now 20 years after the Paul Heyman version of ECW went bye-bye. It's amazing. It's 20 years.
It really is something, and I say this, and I get asked quite a bit, and you know, it's something to say for what we did and what it meant to so many people. You know, you don't hear or really see many people talking about WCW other than maybe, you know, talk about the Monday Night Wars once in a while as a point, but you never hear a chant of ECW. Still, I did a show a couple of weeks ago, and they were still chanting ECW. So we did something right. I think it was a piece of wrestling history that will that will live on forever, and that's pretty darn cool.
It's like Ric Flair's woos. If
Yeah.
you go to even WWE events, if they do a table or a hardcore spot, you'll still hear ECW chants.
And it's aged finer than wine, let me tell you, because I certainly don't remember the matches being as good as we get credit for, but hey, respect.
Hey, there you go. It's like a fine wine. You only get better with age. But it's too bad you don't get the residuals that go along with it on the WWE Network.
Yes.
But that's a different story for a different time. We talked about the great series of matches you had with Jerry Lynn when you were a newcomer to ECW. A couple of other guys we did not mention, one of whom is an MWF original. He competed on our first few events at Wonderland Greyhound Park. He was kind of a youngin' at that point, kind of breaking in, the cousin of Taz, Chris Chetty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any memories of working with Chris Chetty?
Oh, a lot of them. I loved working with Chris Chetty. He was a great kid, great young man, trained well at the ECW dojo, and Taz was one of the guys training over there. And that's one thing I love about the way, and we talked earlier about training and getting into the business. A lot of kids get everything handed to them. In those days, speaking about Chris Chetty and guys that came from the ECW school, another one, Danny Doring had come from that school.
Yep. I didn't know him quite as well.
Roadkill as well, the big bearded guy, yeah. So he was just a phenomenal guy, a good-looking kid, and had a great, unique style because he was a great amateur wrestler, which a lot of people don't know.
I didn't know that. No.
And he could do some acrobatics, and I loved working with him. Actually, we had a couple of matches when I was ECW champion. I defended the title against him.
Did you?
And at a couple of house shows that a lot of people probably didn't see, but nonetheless.
Wait. In this show, we may get to it. Who knows?
Yeah, we never know.
Why do you think he didn't really go anywhere?
I don't know.
Because I thought he had it.
Yeah, I don't know.
He wasn't a great promo.
No.
But in the ring, I mean, he just continued to get better and better and better and better, year in and year out. I mean, he did some great stuff with Nova.
Yep.
Towards the end of the ECW era, and just never wound up in WWE during that ECW takeover invasion. And just never went anywhere. He wound up working with us.
I think,
and I really liked him.
Yeah, he had a lot of potential. I think he had the injury bug a little bit.
Did he?
In the later years of ECW, but he was still a young man. And when the WWE didn't pick him up after 2001-ish, I think because he was a family man, he had a pretty large family of young kids. I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall. And then definitely in 2005. I think he was there for one of the one-night stands, but didn't get re-signed.
I think he was actually sitting in the front row.
Was he? Something, yeah. There were talks of probably bringing him in, but when that didn't happen, I just think
that was
he kind of and God bless him. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
If you're happy and you're able to take care of your family, what more can you really ask for, right?
So I think that was a lot to do with it, because really, if you think about it, a lot of us. I always put it this way. In 2000, and this changed my career, and we'll talk about this hopefully not too long, because I don't want to, but in 2001, there were 3 wrestling companies. Roughly, all 3 companies employed probably around 300 professionals full-time, men and women. All of a sudden, fast forward 2001, WCW and ECW are under the umbrella of the WWE.
Within weeks.
So I would say a good 200 of those full-time jobs disappeared, including pushes and the way promotions had set you up for storylines, etc. I was lucky enough to have jumped right over to WWE and teamed with X-Pac, but for a lot of men and women, they didn't get that opportunity, and it took almost a decade of displacement. A lot of people left the business. A lot of people hung around and worked on the fame they got in the past, but a lot of people. We talk about trajectories and not getting over. Just incredible if he'd have stayed in ECW 2001 and maybe would have continued on that trajectory, and if there was another company in 2004, 2005, maybe that guy would have been a different player in the game. I think that had a lot to do with it, because all over the place now, names and strategies and gimmicks were all over the place. So I think that moment in time hurt a lot of people's careers, hurt mine definitely.
Absolutely.
And hurt a lot of other people's as far as, just simple storylines and getting people over. I mean, I had if you really think about it, the long-term 5-year plan, as Heyman calls it, was to, at the end of the day, execute me and Van Dam as a super match. And I'd never touched Van Dam in ECW, ever. We never once touched in the ring.
You never got to that mega pay-per-view match.
And that was supposed to be him and I, and me dropping the belt to Van Dam. And so, you know, there was a lot of those things going to happen in the future that never got to play out. And you could say that probably happened in WCW as well. So
sure.
A lot of people's careers and a lot of wrestlers' futures were skewed by what happened in those years. And I don't think they ever fully recovered. And then that's Vince too was all over the place with bringing in the invasion angle and then relaunching ECW, then kind of having that be all over the place, never focusing on really his own brand of stars, really going all over the place, trying to bring guys in. And you know, those shows, those like where they found Mike the Miz on those reality shows, Tough Enough and all that stuff. Nobody really organic that was 6'5", like we talked about, 300 pounds and looks the part, is, you know, former pro athlete, somebody that can go. It was all these ragtag groups that they tried to push, and that's why we never get that legitimate star that this business has needed for a long time, and why the old guys, the greats of the business, like the Edges and the Christians and the Undertakers, have always needed to come back. You know,
it's desperation.
Yeah.
Even Goldberg. I mean,
Goldberg,
you know,
yeah. So
for all of his, you know, he's obviously at 54, he's slowed down a bit.
Yeah.
But when he comes out, he still looks like a badass man that
he
can
still
kick
looks
the shit
the
out
part.
of it.
He still looks the part. He can get the job done. But you know, at the end of the day, he's good for that. He's good. But I think fans are so smart now. We know very well that that's what he's going to do. And WWE has got to do better. And it's not because of me. I don't mind to see him. Like I said, it's cool. He still has that look. But if the fans know, because nowadays they know everything, it's not enough anymore to really do that. And I think they're doing the fans a disservice, because more now than ever, in the 2000s, early 2000s, even late 90s, you knew the internet marks were there, but you didn't. Not everybody knew everything. There was still a large number of people that did not read the internet. Mm-hmm. Now, I would argue that most people that go to those shows at some point will mess around and look at some little website because they dig it,
if you
right? They're
use
fans.
Facebook or if you use Twitter, you're going to come across it by accident.
By accident, right.
Right.
So I think WWE underplays that as being impactful. And they've got to find a way to kind of, look, AEW was brilliant at, you know, pretty much telling the world that CM Punk's going to debut at the Chicago United Center, but not actually.
Not saying a peep.
But everybody knew.
They let the fans do it.
And the fans are going to be the ones that are going to dictate this next movement. And it's the first time in a very long time where a company other than WWE has actually had real momentum.
And isn't it sad that with every resource that TNA had, they flushed it down the toilet?
Yeah.
They could have, should have been the AEW momentum growth, as we mentioned. I mean, look at everybody that they signed and brought in. Jeff Hardy was selling as much merchandise as John Cena when he left.
Yeah.
Luckily for WWE, where about a month after he left, he ran into that scandal where he was arrested and they found all the drugs and the steroids in his house. But that wouldn't have been a good look for WWE.
Yeah.
But it's seriously, at that time, that was one of the hottest wrestlers on the planet showing up with Hogan, with
Sting,
Flair,
Booker T, Kurt Angle, everybody.
I mean,
Bubba Ray Dudley was
how do you
hot.
flush that down the toilet?
I don't know.
On top of the great independent talent they were grooming.
Yeah.
Joe and AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels.
The ratings, they actually had good ratings. The ratings were like
in the people.
They were doing it too. They were doing twos.
Did they go
for
up to
Spike?
that high?
Yeah.
And I know people say, oh, you know, ratings are subjective and it's different in this day and age. And sure, you know what, you're not necessarily wrong, but they had all the potential in the world to do what AEW is doing and beyond.
Yeah,
to have,
just
even if you didn't have them work, to have ambassadors like Hogan and Flair under contract to you, to let it turn into what it turned into. It's just sad.
I just think it comes down to wrestling people always doing what they do best, and that's everybody's on deck to take the company's money. You know, they all sucked up to Dixie. Dixie's a wonderful lady. I worked for her several times. You know, they got all those guys got paid, the Jeff Jarrett's, the Hulk Hogan's, and all those guys down the line. The name, you know, you can name them. Everybody got their big money, and everybody else, you know. But then you take all her money, and then the holes start to pop up. And then, the boys are in charge for a lot of that, what happened in TNA, unfortunately. And
it's sad because, like I said, they just...
And AEW is not doing that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They're going. People think that they are because people will say, Tony Khan has the open checkbook and whatever. But to be honest with you, the money he's investing in the kind of talent he's investing in are all future players or players that can provide today. And I think, Hogan and Jeff Jarrett at that time.
Oh, they were done.
They were done. I mean, is Hulk ever really done? But nonetheless.
His name value will never be done.
Right. But as a performer,
look at who they've invested in. Not to turn this into an AEW episode, but Andrade Almas should be one of the top heels on Raw.
Should, yeah.
And they flushed him down the toilet.
Yeah.
They were just starting to do something of interest with Aleister Black after having him sitting in that closet for a year and a half waiting for someone to knock for a fight. And I mean, he was more over in a week doing that angle with Cody Rhodes in AEW than he was in 2 or 3 years on the main roster in WWE. I hate to point to this guy, Tommaso Ciampa, who's been here and he worked with many of our live events over the years. We were lucky enough to have John Bradshaw Layfield with us when he was Intercontinental Champion, and he, Tommaso, and Slick Wagner Brown beat the ever-living hell out of John Cena Sr. out on the loading dock out back, which was kind of a fun moment to have just the credibility of an Intercontinental Champion in our group, But I lost my train of thought on that. Oh, Tommaso, when they brought up Ricochet, Black, Tommaso, and Gargano at the same time, just because they wanted to do something fresh, you hate to say, you never want to see anyone get injured in our business.
Right.
But if he was going to have to break his neck at any time and need neck surgery, that was the time. Because if they kept Gargano and Ciampa on that roster in 2019, they'd be like Ricochet, even worse. Because at least Ricochet, to me, he could be the Rey Mysterio of the next generation.
Right.
Tommaso and Gargano, to me, are just two tremendous workers. But small guys that I think would have got eaten up, jobbed out. If they still had a job, they'd likely still be in catering or on that show Main Event on the network.
Right. Yeah.
But Malachi Black in AEW was over like $1 million. He was a great investment. Miro,
I think they did in the beginning, but I think they've repositioned him now. It seems like they've course corrected quite a bit, and like I said, man, I think they finally got it. I think for the first half of AEW's run with Dynamite was a lot of weird
trying to figure it out.
I think they've kind of hit a stride, and I think the wrestling gods have kind of given it to them, like momentum, just all of these releases are kind of writing the it's almost like too good to be true.
Look, you got Punk. I mean, obviously that is the elite, no pun intended, signee. You got Bryan, who's pretty close. You have the rumor mill that Adam Cole may join. I don't know what's going to happen by the time this episode airs, but Adam Cole may join his girlfriend in AEW.
Sure.
Who I think he would fit far better in AEW than a Major League WWE brand.
Right.
You have, talk about quote-unquote luck, they have a Full Gear pay-per-view the second Saturday in November. Bray Wyatt's contract comes due right around Halloween. Imagine coming up with a concept for him. I mean, look at a guy like Bray Wyatt. He pinned Goldberg to end WrestleMania 36, and there's not even a job.
See, that I don't understand. That really makes me crazy, because that's one of those names you don't just let go. I mean, maybe restructure, but that seemed
Give
very
him a fresh
odd.
coat of paint.
Something that seemed very odd to me. Yeah,
maybe there was more than we know, but. I never heard anything bad about the guy.
Me neither. Yeah,
I think
really weird.
Maybe with him, he just almost like Boogeyman, where the way they were brought into the business, they don't totally get it because they never came in the way you did.
But
it's a good example.
But coming from the father and the whole wrestling family, that's kind of hard to believe. I don't know.
No, I'm talking about Strowman.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Bray Wyatt.
No,
I was going to say
Bray Wyatt's excellent, but I mean, you hear that Strowman's trying to get $25,000 for an indie.
He
needs to learn the business.
Yeah, no,
Same
somebody.
thing like
I thought you were
Boogeyman.
talking about Bray Wyatt.
Oh no, he was in the business when he came out of the womb.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Strowman has $25,000 for an indie.
Are you kidding me? I wouldn't even give him $5,000.
I wouldn't give him. I mean, you're not going to make it back.
No.
Not even close.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, you're as well, probably even much more than I'm kind of familiar with how the payoff structure worked through what I did with Ed Cohen. But I mean, was Strowman getting 25 grand for a house show?
Not even for the Garden.
Come on.
Not even for the Garden.
That might be a nice if he was in a mid-card
pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view, yeah. But for an indie?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
I think he gave us the cue, didn't he, when we were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is when you know we're having great conversation when we
great
lose track
conversation, great
of what we're
content.
doing.
That's all.
All right, wrestling fans, we're going to take a brief timeout. When we come back, we're going to have more Wrestling Insiders Extreme. We're actually going to try and talk a little ECW. Stand by.
Cheer. Why, hello. I would ask what was on your mind, but I already know. You want to know what has got my beard looking oh so majestic. And I'll tell you, it's sexy as hell beard care. Coconut oil, vitamin E oil, almond oil, both sweet and bitter, shea butter, it's all natural. Yes, JTG has actually come out with a high quality product. So support your boy by going to sahbeardcare.com and take one step closer to becoming sexy as hell. Cheer. Ooh, cheer. You know?
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marotti.
MJ in the house.
Future WWE Hall of Famer, mind you. Let me tell you this.
I'm not in there yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But you will be.
Yeah, I will.
You know Sean wants to be the first three-timer.
Three-timer,
yeah.
yeah.
There you go. Let me tell you, you enjoy the in-studio shoot interviews 4 times a week. It isn't cheap to put these productions together, folks. We need your help.
No, because they got to pay me.
Coronavirus has killed the nightlife in a lot of ways. We are night owls, Marty and I, but that's a different story for a different time. One way you can help is to check out the great merchandise we have in the Boston Wrestling eBay store. It is perfect for any wrestling man cave or any collection.
That's right. Check it out.
The Undisputed Era kicked ass and took no prisoners in WWE NXT. Now you can own this limited edition collector's autographed art print personally signed by Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish. Also signed by the original artist, Rob Schamberger, one of only 50 made direct from our friends at WWE. Help keep wrestling legends working. Get this awesome collectible for your collection now. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, welcome back to Wrestling Insiders Extreme. You know what? If you're not part of the Patreon family, you don't know what you miss sometimes on the commercial break. Some of the great conversations we have. You know, we've got about 6 or 7 dozen of the great Patreon fans here tonight that came out to meet Justin, and we're having a great time. But, you know, patreon.com/Boston Wrestling, you get early, full-screen, ad-free access to these shows. You get access to our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library that's been seen by millions online, millions more on the Howard Stern Show. You get Patreon exclusive videos, and more than anything, I keep pushing it. I don't want to get you mad, Marty, but you're helping keep wrestling legends working. Again, patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. If you can't remember it, the link is in the description box below. All of you that come to watch these shows, we consider you great fans, great friends, but when you join the Patreon, we think you're part of the family. You get
I
the
was just going to
scoops.
say, if you're not part of the Patreon, you're part of the problem.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
You know what? I might get a little heat, but I'm going to steal that. And again, folks, if you have forgotten, this Saturday night, 2 blocks down the road, Memorial Hall, Melrose, Massachusetts, it's our 20th anniversary. We're going to have a VIP exclusive Q&A, autographs and post photos, and the hungry young athletes, the superstars and legends of today and tomorrow that want those spots on WWE Raw, on SmackDown, on AEW. They're going to blow the roof off of Memorial Hall. Tickets are available now. BostonWrestling.com. We do note the week of, we raised the price by $5 because it is difficult to put
all the packages for the VIPs together to get it ready for you to hand to you when you arrive at Memorial Hall. So the sooner you get your ticket, it saves you a few bucks. Again, BostonWrestling.com. Now, back to the world of Extreme with former ECW World Heavyweight Champion. When we go back to the 90s, you might have to don that yellow mask. I don't know.
I have it.
We'll see. We'll see.
I have one laying around somewhere.
There you go. We talked about Chris Chetty, who I thought was a very underrated talent. He worked for us here in MWF in the past. Another guy you worked the house show loops with early on in ECW, the Amish Roadkill. Any memories of Roadkill?
Yeah, he was another one, man. Just a really big guy. And one thing I really admired about those wrestlers that came out of that camp, the Taz run camp, the ECW dojo as it was, they were so respectful, so razor sharp in the ring. I mean, they were just excellent, very, very dedicated, and they just, all they wanted to do was have good matches and would do anything. Listen to the veterans, add in their own little, they're always thinking on how to take what we were doing almost to the next level. Like, they wouldn't want to step on any toes, but they always had really good ideas, and you know, they were just really outstanding guys that I really wish had more of an opportunity to shine, you know, because they were underutilized for sure.
Well, I tell you, on the first event I ever worked, two people that really made a huge impact in my life in wrestling were the Sheik and Tony Atlas in different ways. Believe me, I almost died with the Sheik. But also on that first show that Tony Rumble ran, Tommy Dreamer was doing the Strippendale, what's it called? Not Strippendale, Chippendale act.
Chippendale,
and Taz was the Tasmaniac. He was a little furry animal. But I mean, I look back now, I mean, that's the type of locker room that was around on the independent shows back then compared to 2021.
Those were coming out of the old ICW days.
Yeah, the Savoldis. Yeah, this one that we can...
I tried to get into the Savoldis when I first came out of Calgary.
What happened?
I never heard back.
Never heard back?
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. I heard
it's okay.
I heard they were also known as the Rip-Off Brothers at certain times.
Well, there you go.
You might have been doing worse than Memphis.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Well, but that's the whole thing. The funny thing about wrestling when you don't know is they were on television.
Yes.
And the fact that I got their show in Connecticut, I was like, You know, that's how it was. It was that power of television that was so seductive for a young man, young woman sitting at home wanting to get into the business, and they see that, they're like, well, it must be legitimate. It's on television.
They must be making huge money. It's on television.
And then, of course, we go ahead and even portray it even further with big gold championships and $15,000 winners of battle royals. You know, I'd take $15, but what the hell? You know, but still, it was like it was just that illusion of what it was. It was just, you know, great stuff.
Unbelievable fans. Around the time we talked about Joey Styles for the majority of his run, he did the commentary all by himself. At one point, he did have a sidekick doing color, a very risque, ravishing Rick Rude, laying down the verbiage in very creative ways. I thought he was actually kind of good and funny in certain spots. Your memories of what must have been disappointing to ECW, leaving the company to go on to be the bodyguard that couldn't take a bump for DX.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't remember being around Rick that often. No, he was there for a couple of TV tapings I was there for, but I was, to be honest, I was a bit intimidated.
Really?
Yeah, I was such a fan that I didn't really, I loved Rick Rude's work, but I didn't really mess with him. But he certainly had that, that thing that, you know, especially for commentating, because he was a funny guy. You know, and he came from that, I was good friends with Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, and he came from that group of Minnesota guys.
Minnesota group.
Yeah, with like I was friends with Blackjack Lanza and obviously Sean Waltman and all those Minnesota guys were, you know, I was really tight with those guys, so I was a bit intimidated by, they were all shooters too. All those guys can go in the ring.
I heard Rude was,
he was
a
tough
guy. SOB.
Yes, he was. So a bit intimidating. But yeah, he was good with Joey for the little time they had. And another one, not to jump around, but another guy who got his break because I think TNN wanted a two-man booth was Don Callis.
Oh, yeah.
Cyrus.
He did have a run doing it too.
That's right.
He was the...
he was part of the network, right? Yeah, because that was a shoot. That was half a shoot. TNN did want somebody to come along with Joey, because Paul and Joey and Paul wanted it to be just Joey, keep it, you know, traditional. But TNN wanted him there, wanted a second person there, so they made it part of the storyline, which I thought was kind of cool, you know, because that did work for a very long time. That whole angle.
I think he's doing some good work right now in AEW.
Yeah.
I like that character that he's doing.
Very smart guy.
ECW, though, I don't think he really did all that much. I think that was just maybe a character they didn't have time to develop with all the frustrations going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, just
trying to keep the company alive.
Yeah.
But we'll get there as we go further down the road. Also during '97, right around the time you came in, you had guys that were WWF affiliated, like Uncle Al Snow, Doug Furness, Philip LaFawn.
That's right.
Were you guys all in that same mix, trying to come up with something new, something good, so you could go back to WWF to make the big money?
I think some guys were more on that trajectory than others. I was at some point, I don't remember when, but at some point I knew I was not going to go back anytime. I had signed, I think, not to jump too far ahead, but in '98 I had signed like a 5-year ECW thing, for pretty good money too, thank God. And,
how would you? I know people hate to get into facts and figures, and I think that's almost a mistake sometimes. But how would you compare it to WWF money?
I made more in ECW.
If you were to go back in '98 per se, how do you think you would have been comparable to what you were getting in ECW? 50%, 75%?
No, I don't mind even saying. My best year as Aldo, I made $120,000, and I made $150,000 as Justin in '98.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's actually, considering the schedule.
In 2000, I made almost $250,000 for ECW.
So that was was 2000 your biggest year?
Yeah. 2001 for WWE.
Oh, that's right, because you went back during.
Yeah. But Taz was making that money. There was a few of us. It was not Taz. Taz had gone. Van Dam was making it. Like the creme de la creme of the top guys were.
The 150 grand was the mark you were trying to hit in ECW.
Yeah.
For everybody. Well, you earned it. You deserved it.
Yeah.
And like you said, certainly not a.
Well, we were also though giving away. We had video games, all the rights to all the. There was no.
They didn't do residuals?
Nope.
Really?
So we sold all the rights to that stuff too. So a lot of that money, you got to understand.
The action figures.
The action figures, the video games, anything, all of that stuff. So it's all one. But you know what? The way there was no accounting department in ECW.
Could you imagine?
So yeah, I would have just listen. I'll take you, sell my stuff. That's great. Just give me a nice chunk. And he only bounced one check. That he was good to me. Yeah, there was a lot of guys that did have legitimate horror stories. He was always very good to me.
Jim Mitchell only.
And I got lucky. Maybe I don't necessarily know if it was intentional or not. I knew there was a gimmick that we used to all get when we got our checks. There was an 800 number you'd call from the bank, the Bank of America, and you'd write the check account and the amount. This is, remember, 800 numbers. This is pre everybody online. And it would say, you'd put in your amount of your check, and it would say if it could cover it or not. It wouldn't say what the balance was, but it would say if the check would go through. Like if you worked at a grocery store, does he have money in the account? So I'd put the account number in
before you'd go to cash it.
I'd be the first one there Monday morning, dude. I purposely banked with Bank of America just so I could.
Bank of America.
Fucking right, man.
Hey, you know what? You were smart about it, if nothing else.
And I got home usually Sundays, so Monday, as people are just getting into their life. There might be, some people might be in LA. They don't have a bank. Well, everybody has Bank of America. But anyways, I was always trying to be a step ahead of that gimmick.
You wanted to make sure you got the money. Well, that must have been kind of stressful, though, if nothing else, to have that rat race with every check. But as long as you got it.
And then again, I don't know how much of that was just us in paranoia, because you'd hear things. So
maybe Jim Mitchell said he missed 3.
Okay.
And he said, you know what? For everything that Paul Heyman did for him. He held no grudge over it. So,
and the one time he did bounce a check, I went to his house, and
you went to his house, really?
I went to his house, yeah.
Angry or
no. He told me to go to his house. And he gave me an ounce of weed and wrote me a new check. So, because my mother-in-law lived in Jersey, so we flew into Jersey, and we were flying back up through Westchester to go to Connecticut. And it just says, come by the house. So he wrote me a new check and gave me an ounce of weed.
So he honored it. In the end, so technically you never missed one.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the one only one bounced, so I was lucky.
Again, there have been some horror stories, but sometimes people have axe to grinds, or as Tony Atlas likes to say, if a story.
Some people did get screwed, like I know Candido did.
Oh, really?
Because what happened was Candido and Tammy used a lot of their credit to book
Yeah,
airline
credit
tickets.
cards, yes, yes.
So they had like $75,000 in
Oh,
credit
wow.
cards that were paid for ECW tickets and stuff. So I mean, a lot of people did get, I just wasn't that stupid to put credit cards in my name and buy tickets on them.
Did Candido do that because he wanted to be office, or why do you think
Maybe.
he would even get
Perhaps.
involved with that?
Perhaps. Perhaps. I mean, everybody believed in Paul. You wanted to believe in Paul, And I think somewhere deep down inside, he believed a lot of the shit he said. He was the world's best liar.
A great motivator?
Great motivator. Better motivator than he was Booker.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's quite a statement. 'Cause
Well,
I
if you really
consider
look
him-
at the locker room and you look at the people he had on there, not a lot of the greatest workers and or physical talent you could see. But what he would do is get a guy that was like myself or other people that were maybe a little underappreciated, and he would have you believe that you could, run through that brick wall. And that's one thing he was very good at, is making you believe in yourself. And there's something that happens to you when everybody around you tells you you can't. And there's Paul Heyman, third biggest wrestling company in the world, and just believing in you and giving you that. And you have a little bit of that talent. Now he's reaffirming you and saying you could be the best in the world if you really go for it. That's a lot for your esteem. But then what happens is you start to, all the things start to shoot on all cylinders. The belief, and then the action, and then of course help from the book can kind of make a tidal wave. Belief in yourself really in all things in life helped.
Oh,
And
sure.
He was
sure.
very
I
good
agree with that,
at pulling
100%.
that out of everybody. He'd find all the right individuals and tell you what you needed to hear, and what you needed to hear or I needed to hear. He was very good at that.
But for you to say that he
Better
was,
than a booker.
he was
because he had a
better
lot
at
of
that
Tommy
than his
Dreamer
booking.
helped him a
Wow.
lot, and a lot of guys helped him with stories, especially towards the end when the finances got really bad. Paul was more worried about making deals than booking stories. So I
He needed
really
some
believe
help,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's actually a really cool story.
Yeah.
Al obviously went on to have a great run with WWF with Head,
That's right.
and that almost as he told me as a joke when him and Blue Meanie was
That's right.
screwing around
Yeah.
at some house show. Do you think there was anything that could have saved Furnace and LaFawn to go back and have a big WWF run? I found them to be, while solid, kind of boring.
They were not very good.
No?
And they were great guys. I had seen their work in All Japan, and I had worked with them in the WWF.
Just wasn't for America.
Phil was banged up really bad.
Was he?
By working Japan, his knees were shot. And I think they made it to the WWF on pure, because Johnny Ace was in All Japan, and a lot of the people are rumbling, and these guys are great.
Great reputation.
4 or 5 star matches from Meltzer. But then, the bodies the injuries start to catch up to the body. And then even when we brought them into ECW after the WWF run, they were just not good. I think injuries, and they just didn't have it anymore. It's a shame because they were super nice guys. Super nice guys. I loved working with Phil especially.
Are they both passed? I know Furnace is.
He did die?
Furnace did, yeah. Kind of young, obviously, but.
That's a shame.
Sure is. There's so many of our brothers that have left us so soon. The one good thing I'll say about, what WWE has done since the Benoit incident, I think they've really tried to, whether you look at it from a human point of view or a PR point of view, they go above and beyond to try and help former talents when they can. So, you know what? When those talents pass, it isn't Paul Orndorff passes away. It's WWE Hall of Famer Paul Orndorff passes away. And they don't want that out there.
Yeah.
And that's just smart overall, but hopefully there's a human side to it.
They've done a very good job. They've helped me quite a bit. They've put me through multiple rehab facilities. Yeah. And so much to the point where I've gotten aftercare that they paid for, and they do to this day have somebody on their dime that you can call if you need, if you're struggling in between, and it'll help you find what you're looking for, like a professional. I mean, somebody I've dealt with for a bunch of years, same gentleman, wonderful gentleman, and wonderful people.
I wonder if it's that name that I got back in June. Maybe it's the same person.
Yeah, it might be. I would probably bet it was.
Wow.
And he's been there for a long time.
I respect them for it. No matter what the reason is.
They shelled out like 6 figures for my trip.
They're not cheap. It's not like they're sending you to some second-class
No, I
facility.
went to some great place. One great place in Florida, boy, it was amazing, and that was the place that really stuck for me. You know, was the places in Florida and just aftercare and making sure that I, had medicine and so forth afterwards because I didn't have insurance at the time. I do today, but back then, and they.
That makes it even harder, yeah.
And they paid for it.
Wow.
They were very. I think if you show them any seriousness, they will, also kind of. Reciprocate it as much as they can.
I know in that situation I had in June, they were willing to try and do everything they could to make it happen. I know in this very studio, Matt Bourne told a very interesting story about his situation, even though he did wind up passing away as a result of his usage. But I mean, again, 6-figure facility. Not only was it first class when he was there, but the first class treatment he received when it was done. And again, you have to tip the cap to the company, whether it is humane side, whether it is PR, whether it's a mix. They're still doing it.
Right.
And it saved a lot of lives.
It saved Fonzie's life.
Really? Fonzie
even went to the same facility I went to in Tampa, and he's been stone cold sober now almost a decade.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a whole new set of teeth. His teeth are pearly white.
It's good.
Nice tan. He worked for them actually for a while for that facility until it went under with that big
Did
hurricane.
Really? He went back and worked for him?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, see, I wouldn't think he would qualify for it because
substance abuse counselors are big time down in those places that actually, if you are, in recovery, they look for people like that.
I know Duke Drosy does that.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I mean, as far as Fonzie being able to qualify to receive the help, because I know it's everybody, everyone that's ever been under a talent contract.
Yeah,
qualifies.
he was there though for
I
a
didn't
minute.
know that referees would qualify.
Oh yeah, he was talent. He was there for a minute.
I know he was like Giant Gonzalez's handler for a while, and well, I'm glad that they helped.
But I think he signed a deal in 2005.
Oh, for one of the comebacks. Yeah. You know what? Yeah,
to work with Van Damme
yeah. So maybe that's how he got in. Well, you know what? Either or, he's leading a happier, healthier life, and good for him. Good for him. He'd be an interesting guest to have on ECW, Wrestling Insider Extreme at some point.
Yeah, he's great.
Next time we're down in Florida. But another odd one that kind of always stuck to me, right around about a month after you debuted as Just Incredible, you saw Bam Bam Bigelow win the ECW Championship in an impromptu match with Shane Douglas.
Yeah.
What did it say that a guy that had just main evented WrestleMania with an NFL Hall of Famer, Lawrence Taylor, was no part of the company anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a very sad story. I don't know how much you get to know Scott over the years. My memory of him was when Tony Rumble brought him in for a couple of shots. I babysat his son, not at a hotel, but during the days at the shows and during the events, he stayed with me and I kept my eye on him because they knew he could trust me with him.
Right.
And I liked him. I thought he was kind of blunt, but you know what?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Bam Bam, but just to see him go from where he was, the main event of WrestleMania, and again, nothing against ECW, but it's not the main event of WrestleMania with Lawrence Taylor.
But I tell you, it suited him. It fit him like a glove.
Sure did.
He loved it. He loved it there. He was close to home. And he loved it there. He got along with Paulie, I think, because he did live right in that Asbury area for a shoot. I just think he loved the fact that he could be home all the time, be with his wife, and just kind of, the money was probably not. He was making over $100,000 with ECW, so hell.
You know what? And you can live a pretty good life on that. If you're smart with your money.
Hell, give me $100,000 today. I'll be straight. I think a lot of people would shit.
Did you ever get to work, Bam Bam?
Yeah.
Did
I
you?
worked with him in WWF, though, as PJ Walker and as Aldo, as a matter of fact.
Really? And what was Bam Bam like to work with?
Easy.
Yeah?
So easy. Barely feel him. Such a pro. Such a pro. Sweetheart of a guy, too.
As I think you were around for both of them, who do you think was the better big guy? Vader or Bam Bam? Did you get to work Leon?
Oh, yeah. Quite a bit.
How was his ring gear?
Smelled. I got to work with Leon in one of his last matches before
he
died.
Really?
Yeah. He was all right. He was okay, depending on which Leon you had.
Yes.
But to me, he never hurt me or anything. He was a pain in the ass.
You know
Big pain in the ass.
You're talking about the human side.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like.
But the human side, kind of to me is just as important.
Yeah.
Especially when you're putting something together,
I liked Leon a lot, but he just complained.
Oh yeah, always
about
complaining.
Everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, anything and everything you could find to complain about.
He certainly
he
did.
would find that way, and he would drive me insane. But I think a genuinely good human being, though, beneath all that complaining. Yeah. I don't know if it's because he was used to being, I don't want to say babied in the NFL, and then over in Japan, they take their top guys, they really cater to them almost like a Hollywood movie star. When you came back to WWF and were working 200 days a year on the road, you weren't getting that pampering.
No, you weren't. No, you were not. Absolutely.
Well, but again, both of them were phenomenal to watch, to say the very least. But did you ever hear Bam Bam say anything about, such an odd transition to go from literally the top of the world to Queens and the ECW arena? And,
no, he just no-sold it. He was just always happy.
Really?
Yeah,
really
always happy. Yeah. So I loved Bam Bam. He was just always a pretty happy guy.
I wish Tony Rumble had used him more because he was a good guy. His son's name, I think, was Anthony. I don't know if you ever met him, but he was probably about 10. Okay. And he'd bring him up with him in the, to have father-son time, and which I thought was nice, and help with the gimmicks, sales, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have used Bam Bam, but unfortunately, another one of the brothers. That,
Yep.
I don't know if you ever saw it. I used to we had a house in Florida, so I'd spend maybe 2 or 3 months a year out of there. He wound up in a funny commercial for the Universal Studios theme park on the E.T. ride.
Oh, did he?
I thought was
that's pretty neat.
A funny dynamic,
Yeah.
To see Bam Bam and E.T. on an amusement park ride.
Yeah. That's funny.
But like you said, he fit like a glove in ECW.
Yes, he did.
I mean, you talk about if you wanted to sit down and sketch out what a badass pro wrestling heel would look like.
That would be him.
I mean,
yeah.
What didn't he have? He had a good promo. The tattoos on the head put it over the top.
Yep.
He was a big guy that, like you said, could move around almost like he was a cruiserweight.
So good.
But
so good.
In the end, I mean, his body was.
Yeah.
When I did speak to him about trying to come in, it was just.
Yeah. Hurting.
There wasn't much left, unfortunately.
Yep.
For a good guy. And you hate to hear that about a good guy.
You do.
What about Shane Douglas? How was he as a top guy in ECW?
He was great.
Yeah?
He was great. To this day, he's one of the guys that I still talk to all the time and see all the time. Yeah, Shane's fantastic.
Fiery promos.
Yeah, one of the best matches I ever had in my life was against Shane at the ECW arena.
Really?
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll probably get there, but off the top of your head, what did you like so much about it?
Just easy to work with. Just so easy. We didn't call a thing. Half of it was just called in the ring, and it was like a Flair steamboat.
Really?
Back and forth, yeah.
What year would you be, was that when they turned him babyface?
It was right before he left.
So he was probably babyface at that point.
So it was just a lot of fun,
Yeah, I mean, you talk about something that would capture your attention, whether you liked his in-ring work or not.
Oh, it was his promos,
Those promos, man, I tell you, those were lit. Did we get the signal to take it home?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Fans, again, that's when we're having the
when
good
you get
conversation.
that good conversation going.
I can't believe we flew through another episode so quick.
Hey, that's how I'm good at this thing.
Well, I can't wait to have you back. I'm telling you. I can't wait to hear what you guys think in the premiere chat on the right side of the screen. Leave us some messages what you thought about tonight's show, the ECW parts, the non-ECW parts. We're talking great wrestling all around, having a lot of fun here on Wrestling Insiders Extreme. Again, if you give us a thumbs up, doesn't cost you a penny. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, doesn't cost you a penny. Costs you nothing. And you're helping these tremendous YouTube algorithms get us out to more fans that may have left wrestling in the 80s, may have left wrestling after the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars in the 90s. Once they find these talk shows again, just with the growth I see in the numbers month to month and year to year, I know they're going to love what it is we are producing. We ask for your help. Again, the Super Chat is open. You can always make a donation of any size from $1 to, we'll take $1 million or $2 if you happen to have it in the bank. We could really make some fun shows with that. So for my partner in crime, Just Incredible, I am Dan Marotti. We will see you this Saturday night as we celebrate 20 years of this crazy promotion that is Boston Wrestling MWF. Ed Cohen, I know you're listening somewhere up there in heaven. If you didn't get rid of me, none of this may have ever happened, but we're going to have a blast. The ticket prices are going to go up a few bucks this week because it takes a lot of time to put those VIP packages together. Head on over to bostonwrestling.com, get your tickets now, and then next Tuesday night, 10 o'clock after NXT, I'll be back with Wrestling Insiders Extreme. When we talk about a show that is incredible, I think it's become just incredible. We'll see you next Tuesday night at 10. Be well, stay healthy. Good night from Boston.
All right, wrestling fans, again, hope you enjoyed those episodes with Just Incredible. Maybe you had a chance to give him a ring, see where your book and masks were, or find out why he's taking money for these talk shows and not showing up. That's up to you. Again, we are looking forward to our big one Saturday night, April the 16th, Memorial Hall, Melrose, Massachusetts. I believe 39 nights away till we hop in the DeLorean like Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox and go back to the 80s with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, three-time WWF Tag Team Champions Axe and Smash Demolition, fellow Hall of Famers Tito, Santana, and Cowboy Bob Orton. We're talking about the unpredictable Warlord, the wild Berzerker, Dangerous Danny Davis. Again, if we have a big week in ticket sales, we're going to be adding even more 80s WWF legends to that list to go along with the VIP exclusive question and answer session, the VIP exclusive 80s group photo, then the autograph photo fan fest that is open to all fans before a hot night of in-ring professional wrestling. We're out to help our dear friends from Make-A-Wish. The kiddos cannot join us due to corona issues. The good news is, no matter what your look is on masks, it's up to you on April 16th. The City of Melrose mandate is over. If you want to choose to wear a mask and you feel comfortable doing that, that's awesome. Wear your mask. If on April 16th you feel more comfortable without wearing a mask, don't wear the mask. It is up to you. It is at your discretion this time, which I think is awesome. You want to talk about awesome? Our Patreon streaming service is truly a way for you to personally connect with and help keep wrestling legends working. My dear Lord folks, if you want early, full-screen access to our talk shows 7 nights a week, baby, there's one place to be, patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. If you want archives with over 300 full episodes, approaching 350, I believe, patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. If you want to be part of the Boston Wrestling family and enjoy our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library that's been seen by millions online, millions more on the Howard Stern Show, you're not going to believe it, but there's one place to be, patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. If you want Patreon exclusives, if you want watch-alongs, we just taped 3 more brand new ones with the Berzerker that are going to be coming soon. Again, don't hold your breath, baby. We don't want you to keel over and pass away. Patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. We're having a lot of fun. We're adding a lot of content. I have an idea I'm working on that would be time-consuming, but I think that would be fun for 80s wrestling fans. Keep your ears open for that one. Also, with the road to WrestleMania underway, folks, don't forget the Boston Wrestling eBay store is open 24/7. You can find the link in the description box below, as well as going to bostonwrestling.com and hitting store. Every purchase, again, helps bring wrestling legends back to this studio. It helps us produce these great live wrestling events for you to enjoy. And great MWF Wrestling is going to be coming your way. My partner in crime, the one and only, the man that was disrespected by Piggott on November 13th, Walter Hillside, is working on some MWF Wrestling for us as we speak. Speaking of working on, our dear friend Marty Jannetty is going to be coming back to MWF Studios for Season 2 of Wrestling Insiders Party with Marty in the very near future. As noted a couple of weeks back, or maybe even, I can't keep track of when we talk about what, but Marty had an unfortunate episode. He had to wind up in the emergency room. He had 2 major reconstructive ankle surgeries, so he's a hurting guy. I feel a lot for Marty, especially where I battle my CRPS right now, but I think it would be for the best where we have so much going on with Back to the 80s that we hold off until after the big event to have him back in studio for several days of live episodes, watch-alongs, cyber autograph signings, and all the fun that comes with that crazy guy. I didn't really have a chance to see much of him November 13th, but everybody told me how awesome he was. It's going to be great for me personally to reconnect with Marty, as well as producing great content for you guys. Running out of time on this fantastic episode, folks. Hope you enjoyed the marathon. Again, VIP packages and tickets are on sale now for a wrestling celebration, decades in the making, Saturday night, April the 16th at Memorial Hall in Melrose. When we go back to the 80s, due to the weather, due to the facilities, I don't think WWE is bringing WrestleMania back to the Boston area, but on April 16th, we're going to bring a slice of WrestleMania history to you. So again, BostonWrestling.com is your place to lock in the best seats in the house. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a few thousand. We need to fill that hall April 16th. And with that said, folks, we'll be back tomorrow night at 10 p.m. after AEW Dynamite with Wrestling Insider Special Edition. Until then, Phil DeCesare, baby, like no one else can do it. Take it home.
Hi, this is Phil DeCesare. Thank you for enjoying tonight's Wrestling Insiders. Get early full-screen ad-free access to all our weeknight Wrestling Insider episodes while helping keep wrestling legends working by joining the Boston Wrestling Patreon family at patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. You can directly help us bring you more great historical wrestling content 7 days a week to enjoy for years to come.